Chapter 980. The Tang Dynasty cannot be defeated. The Tang Dynasty cannot be defeated. Wang Chong clenched his fists so tightly that his bones creaked. No one understood better than him that once Talas was lost, the Tang Dynasty would never have a chance to rise again. The western regions would be lost, Qixi would be lost, Longxi would be lost, Yuzhou would be sickened, the Tang Dynasty would fall into internal strife, and the calamity would descend. Step by step, the Tang Dynasty would descend into an abyss of eternal damnation. If he wanted to change all this and save the Tang Dynasty, he had to hold Talas and defeat Arabia. Only by holding Talas could he slowly reverse the tragic fate of the Tang Dynasty. Moreover, the Stone of Destiny would not allow him to retreat. Retreat meant death. Roar! The distant behemoths roared, and as Wang Chong clenched his teeth and refused to retreat, a cloud of dust rose from the defense line. The Burning One, the Consecrated, and the White Bear were wreaking havoc on the first defense line, causing countless Tang Dynasty soldiers to flee in panic, thousands of corpses in their wake. Blood seeped into the ground, and in a place where no one could see, a figure sinisterly chuckled. Die! Die! All of you, die for me! My obedient pets, kill all these infidels for me. The hunchbacked Mazel sat on the head of the centipede monster, his hands raised high into the air. Blood seeped down from the ground, dripping onto his head, face, and arms. Mazel's face was suffused with the ultimate joy of slaughter. As the commander of the behemoth army, a favored subject of the Caliph, a deformed and ugly monster, even in the Arabian Empire, Mazel was a sinister and terrifying existence feared by all. But few people knew that Mazel was even more sinister and terrifying than he let on. Mazel had never feared war. Wherever there was a stalemate, there would be Mazel and his behemoths. In every battle, Mazel's favorite thing to do was to dive into the ground while the behemoths crushed their foes into meat paste, allowing the thick blood to wash over him like a raging river. And through this slaughter and blood, Mazel obtained boundless pleasure. This was far more satisfying and intoxicating than his status as the commander of the behemoth beast army and a favored subject of the Caliph. I said before, no one can stop my behemoths, not even these Tang people. Kill them all for me. Ha ha ha. Mazel's eyes were round as he wildly laughed, his expression one of excitement. The great Tang had already been defeated, and Mazel was well aware that the moment he had sent out his 4 strongest behemoths, the Tang had already lost. Moreover, there were still the 200,000 elite Arab cavalry. There's only that brat left. Mazel narrowed his eyes as this thought flitted through his mind. These infidels who had opposed Arabia truly deserved to be killed, but in Mazel's mind, there was one person who was even more detestable than the Tang people. This was someone that Mazel had to kill as soon as possible. 3 behemoths was the largest loss the behemoth army had ever suffered in its history, and it was a disgrace to Mazel. Once I kill you, I'll personally make your head into a toilet bowl. Mazel inwardly sneered, and a moment later, he used a spell to communicate with the giant ape on the ground. Of all the behemoths, the consecrated strength was unquestionable. No behemoth was stronger than it. Dust churned on the ground as the 4 behemoths wreaked havoc on the battlefield like evil spirits of the apocalypse. Suddenly, a savage light flashed through the scarlet eyes of the giant ape on the far left as it locked onto the distant Wang Chong. Roar! The behemoth roared, and with several leaps, the giant ape abandoned the others and lunged at Wang Chong. Its steely fist created a massive vortex in the air as it smashed toward Wang Chong with the momentum of a thunderbolt. The giant ape's attack had been extremely sudden, and it had chosen the exact moment when the Tang Dynasty had been routed and Wang Chong had received the order to break out of the encirclement. Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil as he prepared to retreat. Marquis! Watch out! Ballista soldiers, stop the behemoths! Marquis! Boom! The roars of the behemoths had attracted the attention of the behemoths, and when they saw this sight, they were all stunned and terrified. Marquis was truly powerful, but even more powerful were the behemoths raised by Arabia, existences that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. Even more frightening was that Marquis was standing there motionless, clearly in a daze. Boom boom boom. On the vast battlefield, a series of booming sounds rang out. Long black crossbow bolts whizzed out from all directions like flood dragons emerging from the sea, shooting towards the giant ape's skyblotting fist. At this moment, all the ballista soldiers that were not under attack and could still fire were participating in the assault. However, there was only a series of earth-shattering metallic sounds. All of the black crossbow bolts seemed to have hit the giant ape's fist, and all of the attacks were completely blocked, as if they had hit the hardest layer of barriers. Sharp ballista bolts, each weighing tens of thousands of jin, rained down from the sky. The giant ape's fist, on the other hand, accelerated toward Wang Chong. Ah! Cries of alarm rang out as everyone felt their hearts go cold. Wang Chong, watch out! Just when it seemed like Wang Chong was about to be struck by the consecrated, a figure suddenly shot forward, swinging his sword and unleashing a destructive beam of sword chi at the giant ape's fist. Gao Xianji, you should worry about yourself. Buzz. Whine. Something strange happened. In that instant, black smoke billowed behind the giant ape, and a powerful blast of energy blotted out the sky. Like a bolt of lightning, it struck Gao Xianji's majestic sword chi with a boom. Before the sword could strike the giant ape and stop its attack, it was struck by the vast, powerful, and steel-like energy. With a rumble, it vanished into nothingness. How could this be? On the ground, everyone who saw this scene was shocked. Gao Xianji was the commander of the Anxi Protectorate Army and one of the top-class great generals of the Tang dynasty. His fighting prowess was probably on par with De Wuxia. But someone had been able to scatter his sword chi with a single blow. This sort of cultivation was simply astonishing. Abu Muslim. In the air, Gao Xianji turned his head and saw the figure that stood out from the army behind the huge beast. His pupils constricted, and his expression instantly changed. His heart instantly sank to the bottom of the lake. The person who had intercepted Gao Xianji had an eagle's eyes, a deep nose, and a black cape that flapped in the wind. He was like a demon god from the abyss, and he was nearly 1.9 meters tall. Even amongst the many great generals, he stood out from the rest, his body tall and straight. His disdainful eyes exuded a callous and decisive aura. Anyone who saw him could tell at a glance that he was a man of great skill and daring. But what left the deepest impression was the unique energy exuded by this person. It was the scent of steel and fire. This scent was everywhere, filling every pore of his body, every cell, and even every breath. This was a man who was truly born for battle, a natural-born warrior, a pure soldier, and the most revered, respected, and charismatic leader in the hearts of millions of soldiers. In the entire eastern region of the Arabian Empire, Abu Muslim was probably the only person who possessed this sort of temperament. After patiently waiting for so long, Abu Muslim had finally taken the field. The Tang dynasty had already been in a perilous situation, and now that the Arab commander Abu Muslim had taken the field, the Tang dynasty was in an extremely perilous situation. Gao Xianji, I respect you as a hero, so in this battle, I will personally send you on your way. Abu Muslim's voice was articulate, and as he spoke, a pitch-black fist energy as heavy as a mountain flew through the air, thundering toward Gao Xianji with the speed of a thunderbolt. The moment Abu Muslim punched, a dreadful roar resounded through the air as boundless flames exploded out. Behind Abu Muslim, one could faintly make out the image of a demon god covered in violet-black scales, the hairs of an ox protruding from its body. Behind the gigantic demon god, there was a huge golden-red pillar. The 72 demon god pillars. Abu Muslim was the commander of the army and one of the supreme experts of the Abbasid Caliphate. In his youth, he had been waging war all over the world, and in one of the countries he had conquered that had ties to the Abbasid Caliphate, Abu Muslim had inadvertently obtained a legendary Arabian martial art, the 72 demon god pillars art. In the legends of the Abbasid Caliphate, 72 powerful and terrifying demon gods lived in the sea. They were the enemies of the entire continent, constantly destroying the human world. Later on, the gods sealed them in the 72 demon god pillars and threw them into the depths of the sea. These were the 72 demon god pillars. But even though they had been sealed, the abilities of the 72 demon god pillars had been passed down. This was the powerful 72 demon god pillars art. They had been recorded in 72 secret manuals that had been passed down through the generations of the Abbasid Caliphate. But as the fires of war and the passage of time passed down, a large portion of the 72 demon god pillars art had been lost. But the 72 demon god pillars art that had been passed down through the ages had each possessed astonishing abilities. Each person who had obtained a copy of the 72 demon god pillars art had become an extremely powerful existence in history. If they weren't great generals, they were governors, and they had accomplished incredible feats, becoming legendary existences in Arab history. Chapter 981. The armor Gao Xianji was wearing had been bestowed upon him by the Holy Emperor and was extremely tough. Even divine weapons would find it very difficult to damage it. In his 10-some years in the western regions, this armor had always protected Gao Xianji, but in the end, it had been destroyed by Abu Muslim. One could easily imagine how powerful Abu Muslim was. Boom! Gao Xianji had already consumed a great deal of his strength to fight against the behemoths, and now that Abu Muslim was in peak condition, he instantly suppressed Gao Xianji. The assault of the 4 behemoths and the 200,000 soldiers was a severe test for the Tang dynasty, and Abu Muslim's appearance was like adding hail to snow, putting the Tang dynasty in an extremely disadvantageous position. On the other side, with Gao Xianji's attack blocked, the giant ape had no more obstacles. Its steely fist smashed down with the weight of Mount Tai at Wang Chong, and no one could help Wang Chong. But Gao Xianji's attack was not completely useless. The giant ape's fist was about to smash down on Wang Chong's head, and in just a moment, Wang Chong would die to the giant ape's fist. Bzzz. Suddenly, he heard the explosion of Gao Xianji and Abu Muslim's clash, and he came back to his senses. It's him. The sight of the giant hairy fist and that hawk-like, deep-nosed, muscular, and callous figure behind it made Wang Chong's heart tremble. Rumble. The giant ape's mountainous fist smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Crack. 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 The earth trembled, and countless cracks spread out in all directions. Countless rocks and soil fragments shot out in all directions. The power of that punch was so great that it shocked everyone. Wonderful. Deep underground, Mazel clenched his fists, his eyes shining with bloodthirsty excitement. We finally killed this bastard. The young commander of the Tang dynasty, the bastard who killed his 3-headed beast, was finally killed by him using the consecrated. At this moment, Mazel felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Rumble. Under Mazel's command, the giant ape slowly raised its fist, its scarlet eyes sweeping over the ground. Those who dare to oppose me will not have a good ending. Although I can't turn your head into a toilet bowl, it's not bad to enjoy the sight of your crushed body. Deep underground, Mazel's eyes glimmered with excitement. Mazel had many perverted hobbies that no one knew about. Other than bathing in the blood of his opponents underground, Mazel also enjoyed watching them die a miserable death. The stronger an opponent, the higher their status, and the more fiercely they resisted, the more irresistibly attracted Mazel. Wang Chong had killed 3 of his behemoths and dealt a heavy blow to his army. Nothing was more attractive to Mazel than watching him die a miserable death. This was a feast that belonged to him alone. But a moment later, the excitement on Mazel's face froze. The ground that the giant ape had smashed open was empty. There was nothing there, not even a trace of blood, let alone a corpse. What's going on? Mazel's pupils constricted, and his entire body paled. A moment later, Mazel scanned the ground and noticed a familiar figure. Damn it, how could this be? Mazel's teeth were clenched so tightly that they were about to shatter. He had never imagined that at such a close distance, Wang Chong would still be able to escape from the giant ape's attack. A powerful killing intent exploded from his mind. I don't care about anyone else in this war, but you must die. Do you think you can escape? Mazel's heart seethed with killing intent, and without the slightest hesitation, the giant ape leaped forward in pursuit of Wang Chong. While still in the air, the giant ape raised one of its massive arms and smashed down on Wang Chong's head with the weight of Mount Tai. This time, it was even faster and more urgent. Marquis, watch out! Xue Qianjun yelled in the distance. He had already breathed a sigh of relief, but this sight made him tense up once more. The others also cried out in alarm, their faces pale and their hearts leaping into their throats. Wang Chong was the commander of the three armies, the Qixi Protector General, deeply loved and respected by all. If Wang Chong were to be heavily injured or killed in battle, the morale of the army would be dealt a devastating blow. The entire army would instantly crumble. But the giant fist smashed down. Boom! Wang Chong blinked away, leaving behind a series of afterimages as he once more dodged by a hair. Wang Chong's strength had already reached Tier 8 of the Saint Martial realm, so no matter how powerful the giant ape was, killing Wang Chong would not be an easy task. Die! 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 Deep underground, Mazel was at first dazed, and then his eyes went red with rage. The more Wang Chong dodged, the more intense the killing intent in his heart became. I don't believe that you can dodge once, but you can dodge 100 times, 1,000 times. Roar! The behemoth roared as Mazel controlled the giant ape to unleash a barrage of attacks, its two thick arms swinging up and down like wheels against Wang Chong. But not even Mazel realized that as he dodged the giant ape's attacks, Wang Chong's eyes were growing clearer and clearer, his expression more determined. I can't retreat. I can't retreat. A voice rumbled in Wang Chong's mind, and it was getting louder and louder. The Tang dynasty can't lose. There has to be hope. The wind howled in his ears, the air rushing past his armor and hissing like swords. Wang Chong could hear the screams of the army, the panicked cries of the soldiers retreating, the gurgling of blood into the earth, the snapping of swords and banners. Other than the last battle of his life, Wang Chong had never faced such a predicament. Opening his eyes, Wang Chong saw the fierce battle in the air between Abu Muslim and Gao Xianji. The former Anxi war god was now in dire straits. Nearby, the bearded deputy governor of the Tang dynasty Ziad was also engaged in a fierce battle with Qing Qianli. Countless cracks had appeared on Qing Qianli's supreme desolation god, and the stellar energy chains were also covered in cracks. Even more shocking was that the pitch-black supreme desolation god was slowly becoming translucent. This was a sign that the avatar had run out of energy and was about to crumble. The battle between Ziad and the behemoth had inflicted heavy casualties on the Anxi Protectorate army. Without the support of the Anxi Protectorate army, even Qing Qianli's supreme desolation god would find it difficult to hold out. Wang Chong, run! All of a sudden, a thunderous roar reverberated through the surroundings. As he was fighting with Arab Deputy Governor Ziad, Qing Qianli's supreme desolation god suddenly turned his head to look at Wang Chong, his eyes brimming with anxiety and urgency. The Tang dynasty had already lost this battle. Whether they were willing or not, this was a fact. Whether it was in terms of numbers or the behemoths, the Arabs had far surpassed the limits of what the Tang dynasty could resist. The Tang dynasty should be relocating its soldiers and preserving its strength. Wang Chong, hurry! Qing Qianli's eyes were on the verge of bleeding. Everything had a price, and he and the Protector General could no longer escape. Right now, the only person capable of leading the army out of this place was Wang Chong. He should not have appeared here in the first place. The Qixi Protectorate had come here to save them. Only the Anxi Protectorate army could bring up the rear. Moreover, both he and Gao Xianji were soldiers, and they were no longer young. But Wang Chong was different. He was still too young, only 17, but the intelligence, strategy, ability, and talent he had displayed had already reached the pinnacle, a level that even he and Gao Xianji had to sigh in admiration. If he could survive, Wang Chong would have limitless possibilities. The Tang dynasty would also have limitless possibilities. This was why he and Gao Xianji had instantly made the decision to sacrifice themselves. If only one person could survive, Wang Chong was the best choice. Rumble. Unknowingly, a huge thunderbolt split the sky like an axe and swept through the clouds. At some point, dark clouds had begun to gather in the sky, and all of Talas was trembling under the weight of the thunder. Buzz. The moment the lightning bolt struck, Wang Chong raised his head and swiftly took action. His body swayed, but he did not retreat. Instead, he suddenly flew toward the giant ape that he could not see the end of. Wang Chong. Protector General Wang. Cries of alarm came from both Gao Xianji and Qing Qinli. Neither of them had expected that not only would Wang Chong not retreat, he would actually charge at the behemoths. But at this moment, Wang Chong could hear nothing. Retreat meant death, an abyss of eternal damnation. No matter what, he would not retreat. Ha! With a loud bellow, Wang Chong leaped up the giant ape's arm like a tiny ant. Still in the air, he swung his Wuxia steel sword, unleashing a blazing white sword Qi Tensum Zhang Long. As it swayed through the air, it turned from white to violet and cut into the giant ape's body. In this attack, Wang Chong had actually added the characteristics of the strength of Lu Wu to the art of god and demon obliteration. Wu! The giant ape howled in grief as it drew back its arm, its body trembling in pain. Those scarlet eyes that had been brimming with cruelty and savagery were now thrown into chaos. Boom! As Wang Chong stood on the shattered earth and stared at the howling giant ape, he suddenly punched. Something's wrong. Chapter 982. BZZT. Buzz. As this thought flashed through his mind, Wang Chong suddenly stopped dodging and stood motionless on the spot. Boom! A black fist several times larger than Wang Chong did not strike at Wang Chong. Instead, it smashed into an area 6 to 7 zhang away, triggering a massive explosion. Bang! A boulder the size of a millstone and covered in sharp edges smashed toward Wang Chong. When it was still 1 zhang away, it was stopped by an invisible wall of stellar energy and fell to the ground. Something's wrong. Wang Chong still stood there as if he had seen nothing and felt nothing. At this moment, a few thoughts flashed through his mind, but in his haste, he couldn't grasp onto anything. Boom! Explosions filled the air as the giant ape punched again, landing several dozen feet away from Wang Chong. Wang Chong could sense that the giant ape that had been relentlessly pursuing him had lost all its hatred, as if it had lost its target. Damn it! What was that violet flame? Deep underground, Mazel clenched his teeth, a hint of shock in his eyes as he quickly regained control over the consecrated. In the blink of an eye, the giant ape's eyes regained their savagery and cruelty, and it swung another fist at Wang Chong. This time, there was no deviation, and it smashed straight toward Wang Chong's head. Boom! Stone and dust flew into the air, but this time, the giant ape missed. Wang Chong managed to dodge the giant ape's fist by a hair. This time, he ignored the giant ape and flew toward the battlefield, toward the place where the behemoths were the most ferocious and the Arabs were the most numerous. As he flew, Wang Chong's eyes scanned the battlefield again and again. The feeling in his mind was getting stronger and stronger, like something was on the verge of emerging, but it was still lacking something. No, that's not right at all. There must be something I overlooked. The giant beasts must have a weakness. They only appeared for a short period of time before disappearing. There must be a reason. A thunderous voice boomed in Wang Chong's mind. What is this heathen trying to do? Does he really think he can stop my 3 giant beasts by himself? Deep underground, Mazel was also struck dumb by Wang Chang's sudden action. But Mazel quickly came back to his senses. Humph, struggling and struggling at death's door. In the end, you still have to die. Although Mazel wasn't very strong, he was deep underground, and with the help of his centipede monster, no one could harm him. With 4 top-notch giant beasts, there was nothing that could go against him. Even great generals had to bow their heads. On the surface, Wang Chong had no idea what was going on. His eyes were constantly scanning the battlefield, and when he saw the giant white bear behemoth in the northwest, Wang Chong's eyes suddenly focused. The massive white bear behemoth had been wreaking havoc in the direction of Talas, and just when it was about to charge into the Arab army coming from the rear, the white bear suddenly changed its direction, lunging forward. On this battlefield of hundreds of thousands of soldiers, the white bear behemoth's movement was extremely subtle and inconspicuous. If Wang Chong hadn't been paying close attention, he would have never noticed it. Something's wrong. The feeling in Wang Chong's mind intensified. Buzz. As his eyes flitted past the center of the defense line, the fire-breathing lizard and the powerful behemoth, Wang Chong once more noticed something unusual. The 2 Arabian behemoths continued to wreak havoc as they advanced. At some point, the 2 behemoths had deviated from their original path and were getting closer and closer to each other. But a moment later, as the 2 behemoths were getting closer and closer to each other, it was like an invisible rope had been tied to their bodies and pulled them back. The 2 behemoths that had originally been on the verge of colliding with each other suddenly turned their heads and returned to their original path, continuing to advance in a straight line without getting too far away from each other. Wang Chong's eyes widened, and the feeling in his mind intensified to the extreme. Roar! The giant ape bellowed, its pitch-black body as sturdy as a diamond. Without even thinking, it unleashed an earth-shattering punch at Wang Chong. Strangely, Wang Chong was standing on the ground. Given the giant ape's height, its eyes should have been looking at the ground when it attacked. Although the giant ape's arm had come down, its scarlet eyes were not looking at the ground. It gave off the feeling that its body and mind were in complete disharmony, as if they were being controlled. Bang! As this final thought flitted through Wang Chong's mind, his body trembled. At this moment, he suddenly realized what was wrong. These 4 behemoths were in a state of complete control. The behemoths were acting on instinct. In other words, whether it was the Tang people or the Arabs, they were all the same in their eyes. The behemoths would never change direction after discovering that the Arabs were in front of them. Similarly, a behemoth moving on instinct would never move in a straight line. Not even the giant ape would make the low-level mistake of having its hands and eyes out of coordination. It was more like someone else was controlling it. Once could be a coincidence, twice could be a coincidence, and 3 times was inevitable. The behavior of these 4 behemoths was abnormal. Psychic energy. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, he seemed to understand something. If a person wanted to control another creature, especially a gigantic beast that was so huge and powerful that it seemed to be able to topple mountains and overturn seas, it was impossible to do so with just Gang Qi. There was only one way to control a creature with such a huge body, and that was mental power. How could it appear here? The calamity hasn't even descended, so how could someone possess such enormous psychic energy? To think that someone could use psychic energy to control such a massive creature. Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. In this world where martial arts reigned supreme, everyone cultivated stellar energy. Powerful martial artists could be found everywhere in this world, but existences with powerful psychic energy were few and far between. Wang Chong had only seen psychic energy on a few of the otherworldly invaders before the calamity. Psychic energy was formless and difficult to attack, but the psychic energy of these people was so condensed that it could actually injure top-class martial artists and even control the best generals under Wang Chong's command. However, this was an ability that only the foreign invaders possessed. All of the human warriors had slowly come to understand this ability in the process of fighting against them, and they had also developed a similar method of mental resistance. But the calamity had yet to descend, and the apocalypse was still several years away. Wang Chong had never imagined that he would encounter a powerful existence that could use psychic energy to control the behemoths. Just what's going on here? Why does the Arabian Empire have such a powerful psychic energy expert? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. This discovery had completely overturned everything he knew. Martial artists would find it very difficult to contend against powerful psychic energy experts, unless they could find their true bodies. As this thought flashed through Wang Chong's mind, he quickly came up with an idea. Reincarnation had made Wang Chong different from other martial artists. Although his martial arts had not yet reached the peak of the Saint Martial realm, his psychic energy was at the War Saint level. Bang! In a flash, Wang Chong once more dodged the giant ape's attack. At the same time, Wang Chong formed a strange seal with his left hand. A moment later, majestic psychic energy surged out of his brow and swept through the air like a tide. At first, Wang Chong hadn't noticed anything. There was nothing in the air, but a moment later, when the giant ape retracted its arm and scanned the air with its scarlet eyes, Wang Chong sensed an extremely secretive ripple of psychic energy pass through the giant ape's body and vanish without a trace. If not for the fact that Wang Chong had been searching this entire time, he would have never noticed it. Over there. Wang Chong immediately turned his gaze in the direction the psychic energy ripple had vanished. But when he saw the source of that psychic energy ripple, even though Wang Chong had been prepared, he couldn't help but grimace. The source of that psychic energy ripple was actually on the ground. Down. How could this be? Wang Chong was stunned. He had guessed that this psychic energy expert was nearby, perhaps even hidden amongst the Arab army, but he had never imagined that this psychic energy expert would be hiding underground. This was truly unexpected and left him flabbergasted. With Wang Chong's Tier 8 Saint Martial strength, no matter where his opponent was on the ground, even if they were in the air, Wang Chong would still be able to attack them. But if they were underground, not even someone of Wang Chong's abilities would be able to do so. Ah! At this moment, Wang Chong suddenly heard cries of alarm at his ears. Hurry and save General. In shock, Wang Chong turned his head and immediately saw the distant Chen Shusun. Chen Shusun's face was pale, and his eyes were fixed on the sky, a look of deep despair on his face. Following his gaze, Wang Chong immediately saw a massive golden-armored god in front of him. The armor on the golden-armored god's body had been completely shattered, and his entire body had a dim expression. In front of him, a giant red lizard was opening its mouth, releasing a destructive power that was even more intense than the sun. The lizard was about to spit out a ball of flames that was even more destructive than the sun. Its target was the already off-balance golden-armored god. Chapter 983. Father. Wang Chong's mind reeled in shock. He had been focused on the battlefield this entire time, pondering how to deal with the behemoth. He had never imagined that his father, the mighty miracle god, would be forced into such dire straits in such a short time. But from such a distance, not even someone of Wang Chong's strength could come to his aid in such a short time. Ha ha ha, die. Underground, Mazel was madly laughing. He had never been one to be easily satisfied. In this operation, besides the young Tang commander, the other 3 Tang commanders were also his targets. Killing several enemy great general-level commanders had always been a game and hobby of his that he never got tired of. If he could kill that young man and the Tang dynasty commanders at the same time, nothing could be better for Mazel. Kid, first kill these Tang people for me. Deep underground, Mazel controlled the burning one to spit out a lava-like flame. 100 zhang, 200 zhang, the flames rapidly expanded, and just when it seemed like Wang Yan was about to be heavily injured by the burning one's flames, something completely unexpected occurred. Bang! A majestic bolt of psychic energy shot forward, striking the burning one as well as the psychic energy that Mazel had attached to the burning one. "Father!" Only now did Wang Chang's shout come from the distance. Not even Mazel had expected that in his panic, Wang Chong would almost instinctively unleash his psychic energy and attack the burning one in its purest form. Hong, the burning gold and surging sea of lava that could even melt rocks suddenly trembled and abruptly deviated from its original direction. With the force of a thunderbolt, it abruptly smashed onto the ground 100 feet away from Wang Yan. At almost the same time, Wang Chang's boundless psychic energy shattered the strand of psychic energy that Mazel had left on the burning one. The world fell silent. Mazel's eyes were wide open as he sat on the head of the centipede monster, dumbstruck. How could this be? Mazel's mind was raging with great waves of shock. Even though only a sliver of the psychic energy attached to the burning one had been destroyed, this was no less than a massive earthquake to Mazel. At this moment, Mazel would not have been so shocked even if his 4 strongest behemoths had been slain in front of him. As everyone knew, there were very few mind power masters in this world. The probability of 2 equally powerful mind power masters meeting on the battlefield was not impossible, but it was close to 0. Could it be that there are also top-notch psyche masters among these heathens? Impossible. This was impossible. How could such a thing happen? Mazel's mind was in turmoil. Wang Chang's psychic energy had dealt him an unprecedented blow. Coincidence? It must be a coincidence. Mazel clenched his teeth, but he quickly came to his senses. As the leader of the Arabian behemoth army, he had been bestowed many psychic energy tools by the Caliph, and as a priest, he had obtained an ancient legacy, allowing him to possess such powerful psychic energy. No matter how strong a normal martial artist was, they would never be able to compare. No. Almost no martial artist could match up to him in terms of spiritual power. He could not believe it. This had to be a mistake. Burning one. Attack. Mazel's mind screeched as he communicated with the burning one on the ground. Chong-er. On the fierce battlefield, Wang Yan's mighty miracle god slowly withdrew his gaze from the blazing lava and subconsciously turned to Wang Chong behind him. The fiery giant lizard's attack was extremely powerful. Wherever the flames passed, the rocks were all melted, leaving behind a huge pit with a diameter of more than 100 feet. The pit was charred black, and smoke was constantly rising from it. The fiery lizard's attack had missed. Such a thing had never happened before. Although he didn't know what had happened, Wang Yan was sure that this matter had something to do with Wang Chong. In the distance, Wang Chong could clearly sense Wang Yan's gaze, and he was even more shocked than his father. Although he was the war saint and possessed abnormally powerful psychic energy, Wang Chong had never had a chance to test it. This was Wang Chong's first time clashing with a powerful psychic energy expert on a large-scale battlefield. In that moment, Wang Chong had almost instinctively released his psychic energy, but he truly hadn't expected it to have any effect. Roar! A roar came from next to him, and at the same time, he heard cries of alarm from the crowd. "Milord! Careful! Not good! That behemoth is about to spit fire again." The crowd on the battlefield was in a panic. Wang Chang's heart tightened as he turned his head and saw that the behemoth was crouching on all fours, its throat bulging as it began to spit out flames much thicker than before. Rumble! As Wang Chong and Wang Yan looked over, the behemoth spat out another attack, this one much stronger than before. Buzz! There was no time to think. A majestic bolt of psychic energy erupted from between Wang Chong's brows, piercing through the air to strike the distant fiery lizard. Boom! Nothing happened, but Wang Chong felt like he had struck a steel wall. Within the body of the fiery lizard, Wang Chong could clearly sense a sinister and cold psychic energy that also exuded a thick aura of darkness. A psychic energy expert. Although he couldn't see anything, Wang Chong was sure that this was the psychic energy expert controlling all the behemoths from behind the curtains. "Brat, just where did you come from?" Mazel's furious roar resounded in Wang Chong's mind. I'm going to kill your people. Wang Chong sneered, and then another enormous surge of psychic energy, even stronger than before, erupted from Wang Chong's brow. The two psychic energies fused into one and slammed into the dark and sinister psychic barrier. Rumble. Mazel's psychic energy was once more pulverized. Boom. At almost the same time, the magma spewed out by the giant, burning one, seemed to be struck by an invisible force. It deviated once more and spat out more than 100 meters away from Wang Yan, scorching the ground. Retreat. Pass on my order. All soldiers, retreat. Wang Yan ordered, but he himself remained unmoving. Although he didn't know what had happened or how Wang Chong had done it, the current situation was undoubtedly extremely advantageous to the Tang dynasty, the best chance to cover the retreat of the army. In order to cover the retreat of the army, Wang Yan's infantry had suffered grievous losses. Rumble. The moment Wang Yan gave the order, the Tang dynasty infantry began to retreat. Even as they retreated, they maintained strict order and formation. On the other side, the Burning One's two missed shots had caused far more changes. In the air, even Abu Muslim and Ziyad, the two Arab governors engaged in fierce battle, noticed this anomaly. Although the behemoths were not as intelligent as humans, their instincts were extremely terrifying, not one bit inferior to the supreme experts of the martial path. The fiery lizard primarily breathed fire, and when it did so, it was not only extremely fast, but also extremely accurate. Two missed shots in a row was not normal. In that instant, both of them frowned deeply. But the behemoth army had always been a force outside of their control, a force directly under the Caliph of the Arabian Empire. Not even Abu Muslim knew anything about its secrets. Thus, he had no way of knowing what had happened to the behemoth. At this moment, no one was more shocked than Mazel, seated cross-legged on the head of the centipede monster. Wang Chong's psychic energy strike had struck him like a magnitude 12 earthquake. Mazel's entire body was in a state of shock. Psychic energy expert. Psychic energy expert, he really is a psychic energy expert. Mazel's eyes were on the verge of popping out of their sockets. He had been deceiving himself the first time, believing that two powerful psychic energy experts could not appear on the same battlefield at the same time. But the second time, Wang Chong's psychic energy strike had shattered all his hopes. How could there be such a thing? Just how old is this brat? Just how old is he? How could he have such powerful psychic energy? I don't believe it. I can't believe it. Mazel inwardly roared. Psychic energy, like martial arts, relied on ancient legacies. And because this was a world of martial arts, the legacies of psychic energy were even more ancient and vast than those of martial arts. Almost no one with powerful psychic energy was young. Mazel was a genius. Although he was born with a hunched back and an ugly appearance, his psychic energy was abnormally powerful. Very few people in the Arabian Empire could contend against him, which was why he was able to raise the behemoth army. In this aspect, even the governor of Iron and Blood of the Eastern War Zone would have to admit that he was inferior. It was precisely because of this rare talent that Mazel was able to hold an important position in the Arabian Empire, where martial strength reigned supreme, that he was valued by the Caliph. But now, Mazel had encountered another powerful psychic energy expert, one much younger than him. This completely overturned Mazel's understanding of psychic energy experts. This world can't have so many powerful psychic energy experts. I alone will be enough. Everyone else must die. Infidel, you must die. No matter what price I have to pay, you must remain here today. Mazel inwardly bellowed. Before, Mazel had only wanted to kill Wang Chong out of selfishness because of the three behemoths he had spent so much effort raising. But now, Mazel's killing intent for Wang Chong had reached its peak. Mazel could even ignore Gao Xianji, Qing Qinli, and Wang Yan, whom he had previously wanted dead. Chapter 984 Ruor. Chapter 976, Battle. Ruor. The Burning One, the Reaper, and the Consecrated all roared at the same time, their scarlet eyes staring viciously at Wang Chong, who was standing on a protruding rock amidst countless corpses. Bang bang bang. Dust churned and the earth quaked. At almost the same time, the four behemoths lowered their bodies and roared as they lunged at Wang Chong from all directions. As they lunged, they also launched swift attacks. Hu! Flames more dazzling than the sun appeared at the Burning One's throat, and with a squelch, they flew through the air. But this time, their target was not Wang Chong, but the blood-stained Wang Chong. Ah! Cries of alarm could be heard from all around. Let alone the Tang, even the tens of thousands of Arab cavalry on the ground noticed this abnormal sight, all of them glancing at each other, confused as to what was going on. In the air, Abu Muslim and Ziyad glanced at each other, their brows tightly furrowed. This was not part of the plan at all. The actions of the four behemoths had completely exceeded the scope of a normal military attack. This was not what Abu Muslim had expected. What is this bastard Mazel doing? Abu Muslim's mind was burning with rage. Military orders were like mountains. As the commander-in-chief of the army and the illustrious governor of Iron and Blood, Abu Muslim had always been known for his iron fist, callousness, and strict discipline. No matter which famous general or general under his command, no matter what background or ability they had, even Deputy Governor Ziyad, no one dared to defy his orders. But in the current situation, it was clear that Mazel had mobilized four elite behemoths and acted on his own, causing Abu Muslim to instinctively feel displeased. But in the end, Abu Muslim was not someone who couldn't endure. Moreover, the Tang dynasty's defense line had been broken, and its collapse was a foregone conclusion. Given this, Abu Muslim would not lower himself to Mazel's level for the time being. Is it because of that brat? Abu Muslim narrowed his eyes as he followed the four behemoths to the distant Wang Chong. In a flash, Abu Muslim seemed to understand something, but there was no time to think. Abu Muslim's body trembled with black energy as he attacked Gao Xianji with all his might. Abu Muslim's desire to kill Wang Chong was no less than Mazel's, but before that, Abu Muslim first had to deal with Go Xianji, the core of the Anxi Protectorate army. Bang! 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 In midair, the two figures were as fast as lightning, leaving behind a series of afterimages in the void as they continuously clashed against each other. On the other side of the boulder, Wang Chong's eyes flashed as he saw the four behemoths lunging at him, and he swiftly took action. Boom! Boundless psychic energy swept out and collided with the four behemoths. In a flash, Wang Chong and Mazel had once more collided. Wang Chong felt a soundless tremor in his mind, and on the other side, the consciousness that Mazel had attached to the four behemoths seemed to be swept away by a gale and pulverized. The four behemoths that had been lunging at Wang Chong suddenly froze, confusion appearing in their scarlet eyes. All of them were at a loss for what to do, only able to take stock of their surroundings in a daze. As expected. At this sight, Wang Chong immediately understood. This was the first time in Wang Chong's life that he had engaged in a battle with a powerful psychic energy master. The first time, Wang Chong had been fighting on instinct, but after 3 exchanges, Wang Chong was getting more and more proficient in using psychic energy. Now, he had vaguely understood something. Perhaps this war was far from over. Wang Chong sensed that if he wanted to change the outcome of the Battle of Talas, he had grasped an extremely crucial key. Bastard! I'm going to die from anger. Deep underground, Mazel's lungs were about to explode from anger. As the commander of the behemoth army, Mazel had never failed in controlling the behemoths, but 3 times in a row, he had been stopped by this youth from the Tang dynasty. Mazel had a powerful psychic energy, but he couldn't use it at all. It was like he had encountered his nemesis. Impossible. I can't lose to a brat who hasn't even grown his hair yet. Mazel's killing intent burned hotter and hotter. Boom! Psychic energy condensed into a sharp awl that pierced through the earth toward Wang Chong. Darkness thrust. As the commander of the behemoth army, Mazel had inherited an extremely powerful psychic art from the priest of the Arabian Empire. It could easily obliterate a person's soul, and Mazel had once used this dark stab to kill many enemy generals. Even those great generals would suffer severe mental injuries from Mazel's attacks. In the field of psychic energy, the hideous Mazel was undoubtedly a grandmaster. Boom! Mazel's darkness thrust was like a sharp sword that stabbed into Wang Chong's mind. But a moment later, the psychic domain exploded with a heaven-rending boom. Mazel suddenly realized that his darkness thrust seemed to have struck the world's sturdiest psychic barrier, instantly dispersing into nothingness. Moreover, what shocked Mazel the most was that he sensed an unprecedented soul in that young man's body, one that was completely different from any Mazel had ever seen. This soul was powerful and exuded a bizarre feeling. In Mazel's perception, it was like there were several souls layered on top of each other. This was a bizarre situation, but it was also perfect and harmonious. Mazel had never seen such a complicated soul before. "Brat, just who are you?" Mazel said in shock. Wang Chong was also rather surprised. This psychic energy expert hiding behind the curtains was far more formidable than he had imagined. He seemed to have noticed something that had never happened before. But a moment later, Wang Chong came back to his senses. No one could discover the secret of the Stone of Destiny. As for Mazel's psychic attack, Wang Chong could even endure death, let alone a trifling psychic attack. Don't say such meaningless words. I've already discovered your position. You controlled the behemoths to kill so many of my men. Do you think you can escape? Wang Chong coldly chuckled. Mazel should not have used this sort of psychic attack. Previously, although Wang Chong knew that he was underground, he had no way of determining his exact location. But now, Mazel's attack on Wang Chong had allowed Wang Chong to grasp his weakness and find his exact location. What? Deep underground, Mazel was flabbergasted to hear these words. Before Mazel had time to think, he sensed an enormous tide of psychic energy erupting from the ground. What made Mazel pale the most was that this tide of psychic energy began to transform midway, fusing together into a sharp cone. It was the same as Mazel's darkness stab. Boom! Wang Chong's psychic energy attack thundered through the ground and slammed into Mazel's body. There was a soundless tremor in their minds. On the ground, Wang Chong, who was standing on the boulder, clearly swayed. Underground, 2 streams of blood flowed from Mazel's nostrils. In a simple clash of psychic energy, Mazel did not fear Wang Chong, but unlike a St. Martial Tier 8 expert like Wang Chong, Mazel's body was far weaker. This psychic energy attack had left his blood in turmoil and his body injured. Impossible. How could there be such a thing? He managed to learn my technique so quickly. Mazel's entire body trembled, his heart chilled. His injuries were secondary to the fact that Wang Chong had been able to use his own technique to counterattack. This was something that Mazel found unacceptable and fearful. Wang Chong clearly did not know the darkness stab, or else he would not have used such a primitive method to attack. But for someone to learn another psychic energy technique in such a short amount of time, comprehend it, and use it in actual combat, this sort of talent far surpassed Mazel's imagination. In Mazel's understanding, this was impossible. Even if he was a genius, he did not have this sort of ability. Kill. 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 Brat, I'll definitely kill you. Mazel's mind was in a mess. He had always been conceited, but Wang Chong's existence was a massive blow to him. Boom boom boom. Without the slightest hesitation, Mazel gathered his psychic energy into countless sharp needles that shot toward Wang Chong. Humph, come. On the ground, Wang Chong stood on the boulder, his expression cold and fearless. This Arab psychic energy expert was truly formidable, but no matter how formidable, his psychic energy attacks could not compare to the world constraint. Without the slightest hesitation, vast waves of psychic energy erupted from Wang Chang's brow and surged through the earth toward Mazel. And it was even more vicious than Mazel's. This was the first major defeat of Wang Chang's life. The thick stench of blood in the air and the countless corpses and severed limbs on the ground were all stabbing at Wang Chang's heart. There was no question that the Tang dynasty had suffered today's defeat because of the four behemoths and that mysterious psychic energy expert hidden deep underground. Abu Muslim and his 200,000 Arab cavalry alone would have never possessed this sort of strength. Chapter 985. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Deep underground, just 300 feet below the surface, two powerful mental powers violently collided with each other like raging dragons. Two completely different kinds of psychic energies, one cold and sinister, clashed and clashed. Although they did not have the boundless vibrations of stellar energy like martial artists, nor did they have the dreadful power to rend the earth and sky apart, they were far more dangerous. A battle of psychic energies of this level was enough to make even great generals pale in comparison. The two clashed again and again, and both Wang Chong and Mazel's psychic energy had been severely injured in this battle. Wang Chong stood on the boulder, and though he seemed unmoving, his face was ghastly pale. But in the end, Wang Chong was still a Saint Martial Tier 8 expert. In comparison, Mazel had suffered far more severe injuries. Mazel was not just bleeding from his nose. His eyes, ears, and even his bulging back were bleeding. He was in an extremely wretched state. Bastard! No matter what, I'll kill you. Mazel bared his fangs and brandished his claws, his entire body on the verge of madness. Mazel had such an esteemed status that all the nobles, governors, and generals had to treat him with respect. In the Arabian Empire, no one except the Caliph could order him around. Even Abu Muslim was only acting on the Caliph's orders. If not for the Caliph, Mazel could have just turned around and left. Not even Abu Muslim, the governor of the East, could order him around. But now, Mazel had been reduced to such a sorry state by an Eastern infidel. This was the ultimate humiliation. Buzz! Without the slightest hesitation, Mazel's eyes exploded with hatred as he controlled his centipede monster to plunge deeper into the ground. Wang Chang's eyes narrowed and his eyelids twitched. Mazel's performance had completely exceeded his expectations. However, Wang Chong quickly understood that mental strength was not limitless. The further the distance, the weaker the effect of a mental strength attack. It was obvious that the other party had suffered a loss in the fight against him and wanted to avoid the battle, increase the distance between them, and escape from his attack range. However, Wang Chong did not give chase. The underground was a forbidden zone for martial artists. Without special methods, it would be very difficult to sneak underground and attack such a strange opponent. This was obviously something the other party had considered from the very beginning. Most psychic power users were physically weak, and without special life-saving measures, they would not easily go to the front lines. The most important thing now is to find a way to deal with these four giant beasts. Wang Chong stood on top of a boulder, his clothes and hair fluttering in the wind. He was anxious, but he didn't show it on his face. The army was in an extremely perilous situation. Abu Muslim and Ziyad, two of the highest Arab commanders, had already taken action. Just the threat of these two people was enough to suffocate everyone. Moreover, there were four behemoths capable of destroying the heavens. As Wang Chong thought this, his eyes quickly focused on the four behemoths. I originally didn't want to use this technique. Brat, you forced my hand. Mazel's voice once more resounded in Wang Chong's mind. A ripple of psychic energy more majestic and powerful than Wang Chong had ever felt before shot out of the ground. But its target was not Wang Chong, but the giant ape. Wang, in an instant, that tremendous mental power rapidly sank into the giant ape's body and disappeared. This is, Wang Chong was flabbergasted by the abrupt start of the battle. He had originally believed that the other party was avoiding the battle, but it now appeared that this was not the case at all. In just a few moments, the battle between Wang Chong and Mazel had undergone a massive transformation. Roar! Several dozen zhang behind Wang Chong, the consecrated's long fur stood on end and danced in the air. It opened its bloody maw, revealing its savage fangs, its entire body seething with flames that seemed capable of devouring the heavens and devouring the earth like the tide of the sea. Foul brat, you're dead for sure. I'll swallow you alive. Mazel's voice came out of the ground, and after saying this, he vanished. Deep underground, plush. Mazel vomited a mouthful of blood onto the head of the centipede monster beneath him. His expression had greatly deteriorated, and his face had grown even older and uglier. The Behemoth Fusion Art. This was another psychic energy art recorded on the ancient Behemoth papyrus. It was used in conjunction with the behemoths, and only Arab priests with powerful psychic energy had the ability to use it. In that extremely developed ancient empire, even these behemoths would occasionally encounter extremely powerful opponents. The Behemoth Fusion Art was used to destroy these powerful opponents. Using this psychic energy art not only had a very low chance of success, but failure would also result in a severe backlash, even death. And even if one succeeded, they would have to pay an enormous price. Not only would their soul feel like it was being torn apart, their psychic energy would be greatly weakened, and their lifespan would be greatly shortened. Thus, all the Arab priests were extremely cautious. If not for the fact that psychic energy experts were incompatible with each other and that Wang Chong's display of psychic energy made Mazel feel extremely threatened, he would never have used the Behemoth Fusion Art. Damn it! To make me pay such a heavy price, losing 10 years of my lifespan, I'll tear you to pieces. You'll pay an even greater price than I did. Mazel's eyes shone with loathing, and he quickly lowered his head, at the same time connecting his psychic energy to the giant ape on the ground. Bang! The sky darkened as a massive fist the size of a mountain smashed toward Wang Chong. It was the same punch from the giant ape, but its speed and power were on a completely different level. Rumble! The earth quaked and countless stones flew several dozen zhang into the air. Black energy even began to seep out of the giant ape's fur-covered fist. The space where the giant ape had smashed down began to twist and blur. What's going on here? How did it suddenly become so fast? Wang Chong had managed to dodge the giant ape's attack by a hair, but he was inwardly alarmed. This giant ape had pursued him before, but neither its speed nor strength had been as terrifying as it was now. If Wang Chong hadn't reacted so quickly and used his psychic energy to keep an eye on his surroundings, he would have already been struck. Not only that, when Wang Chong turned his head to look at the colossus behind him, Wang Chong could sense that the giant ape's body had transformed into an invisible vortex of darkness, and origin energy was surging in from all around it. With the support of the chi of heaven and earth, the giant ape's strength continued to grow. Even its size seemed to be growing. A hint of shock finally appeared in Wang Chong's eyes. He had never known that these behemoths could grow in this manner. This was already somewhat similar to martial artists. Die for me. Mazel's psychic energy rippled once more, but this time, it did not come from underground, but from the giant ape's body. Boom! Under Mazel's control, the giant ape unleashed another swift and agile punch. At this moment, Mazel was no longer Mazel. He was the giant ape, and the giant ape was him. And Wang Chong was just an insignificant ant standing in front of it. Rumble! The Behemoth Fusion Art. After successfully using this ancient secret art, Mazel immediately unleashed a flurry of attacks on Wang Chong. At this moment, the giant ape's strength had more than doubled. Other than allowing the user to control the behemoth fusion art also had an even greater effect. It could gather the origin energy in a radius of several hundred li and strengthen the behemoth. The longer it took, the stronger the behemoth would become, until it reached an unimaginable level. "Marquis, run!" Cries of alarm came from the distance. The transformation of the behemoth caused Chen Burang, Sun Jiming, and even Li Sai's group to pale. In everyone's understanding, the strongest martial artists of the world were undoubtedly the great generals who stood at the apex of power and authority. But even the strongest great generals would pale in comparison to this giant ape, much less Wang Chong, who was at Saint Martial Tier 8. Roar! The giant ape's roar made everyone tremble in fear. Its frenzied attacks had completely destroyed the surrounding earth veins. As for Wang Chong, he was dodging left and right amid the giant ape's attacks. It seemed like he was in a perilous situation and could lose his life at any moment. No. If this continues, Marquis will die. In his current state, he can't deal with the behemoth. Sun Jiming anxiously said. Wang Chong was the person he respected the most, the person he wanted to learn from and emulate. If not for Wang Chong, he would still be a servant of Deng Mingxin and the Deng clan, suffering all their insults and humiliation. A true man should be like Marquis, protecting the common people, achieving great feats, and resisting foreign kingdoms. This was the kind of breadth of mind and boldness that Sun Jiming admired and yearned for. No matter what, Marquis can't die here. Sun Jiming's heart was filled with worry. Hiya! Sun Jiming slapped the back of his horse and prepared to charge toward Wang Chong. It's useless. Marquis won't leave. Chapter 986. Jiming, you know Marquis' style. Given Marquis' strength, nothing can stop him if he wants to escape, not even the Arabs or that giant ape. It's not that he can't escape, but that he won't. Haven't you realized it yet? Marquis is using this method to draw the attention of the four behemoths and reduce the casualties of the army. Buzz! Sun Jiming's body trembled at Chen Burang's words, and his footsteps came to a screeching halt. Jiming, this is Marquis' choice. If it were just for safety, he wouldn't have donated all his wealth and risked his life to go to the southwest when everyone else had given up, and he certainly wouldn't have appeared here. He didn't retreat in the southwest, and he certainly won't retreat today. This is Marquis' decision. You know that no one can change it. Chen Burang sternly said. He also wanted to save Marquis. How many people in the world could be like Marquis, truly caring for his country and the world? But Chen Burang also knew that the army at Talas had been routed and that there was no other choice. Marquis had decided to take on this burden, and no one could change this. Sun Jiming's face turned ghastly pale, and he clenched his fists, but in the end, he did not take another step forward. After a long while, he finally turned his head in another direction. On the other side, Wang Chong was paying no attention to anything else. His attention was completely focused on the giant ape before him, whose strength had greatly increased. Rumble! Countless rocks and the air around him were instantly transformed into the fiercest of explosives under the furious bombardment of the giant ape. Wang Chong left afterimages in the air as he dodged and dodged. The sharp rocks were constantly hurtling toward him, but they were all blocked by Wang Chong's stellar energy. There has to be a way. Wang Chong leaped and dodged the giant ape's attack. He raised his head in midair, his pitch-black pupils reflecting the gigantic creature above him. At that moment, Wang Chong thought of many things. Countless martial arts and spells, as vast as the sea, continuously rushed through his mind. Boom! While he was thinking, a powerful spiritual wave shot out from the depths of his brow and struck the giant ape like a heavy hammer. Ha ha ha, it's useless. Do you think it's the same as before? Now, I no longer have any weaknesses. Your spirit is not as strong as mine, and now, even your strength is not as strong as mine. Ha ha ha. Mazel heartily laughed, not bothering to conceal his disdain. Although the beast fusion technique required a huge price, it was all worth it. Previously, he was afraid of this heretic's strength. But now, he was just an ant in his eyes. Mazel could easily toy with him. The air whistled as Mazel controlled the giant ape's body and smugly punched. The war was already won, and this psychic energy expert of the Tang dynasty was a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Boom! There was no ripple in Wang Chang's eyes, but as Mazel spoke, he sent another psychic energy spear at the giant ape. It can't be wrong. The weakness of these behemoths is psychic energy. Although the behemoths have massive bodies and inconceivably powerful bodies, psychic energy cannot be nurtured. Their greatest weakness must be their mental power. Wang Chong quietly said to himself. His body made a turn in midair and quickly landed on the ground. Then, his feet didn't touch the ground as he leaped forward, dodging another attack from the giant ape by a hair's breadth. Bzzz. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong fired another psychic energy attack from his brow. But this time, his target was not the giant ape, but the fiery lizard, the burning one, several dozen zhang away. Boom! Although nothing happened, Wang Chong could clearly see that the giant lizard that had been madly spewing flames suddenly froze for a few moments, as if it had been frozen in place. But soon enough, another stream of magma spewed out of the lizard's open mouth and splashed onto the ground, creating a huge, charred pit. It works. Psychic energy attacks truly are effective against these behemoths, but how can I heavily injure them, even control them? Wang Chong deeply frowned. He could sense that he had found the right method, but for some reason, the effect was extremely limited. It was like he had found the path, but he could not open that half-closed door. But as Wang Chong was racking his brains, that familiar and crazed laughter rang out once more. Ha ha ha, I overestimated you. So you weren't a psychic energy practitioner at all. Although you have powerful psychic energy, you don't know how to use psychic energy to attack. At this moment, Mazel felt like he had discovered a new continent. He had originally been filled with apprehension toward Wang Chong, and for this reason, he had been filled with killing intent. But when Wang Chong charged at the behemoth, Mazel realized that he had been wrong. This scoundrel wasn't as formidable as he had imagined. It appeared that Mazel had only a smattering of psychic energy, a complete amateur. Is that so? Do you really think so? At these words, Wang Chong's body froze and he came to a sudden stop. He raised his head and coldly smiled at the giant ape possessed by Mazel. At that moment, he suddenly knew what he had to do. Although Wang Chong was not a pure psychic energy expert, he knew quite a few psychic energy techniques. One of them was called the beast taming art. This was a technique that used psychic energy to control other animals. The only problem was that although Wang Chong knew of this technique, he had never used it before. Moreover, in the apocalyptic world, the majority of the animals that Wang Chong had encountered were tigers and wolves. This was probably the largest creature that the beast taming technique could control. But the behemoth was completely different from those creatures, and Wang Chong had no idea if it would be of any use. Whether it's useful or not, I can only try. At the very least, this is a psychic energy technique. At this thought, Wang Chong's eyes hardened. Rumble. Wang Chong suddenly shot into the air like a hawk, heading straight for the giant ape's head. With a flash, he landed on the arm of the giant ape at an incredible angle. At the same time, he leaped towards the head of the giant beast without stopping. What? Mazel was flabbergasted. He had never imagined that Wang Chong, who was clearly weaker than him, would dare to charge at him. Damn it! The giant ape flipped its palm and grabbed at Wang Chong with the power to pluck the stars and seize the moon. But before the palm could land, Wang Chong's eyes flashed with cold light, and a vast psychic energy that was completely different from before erupted from the center of Wang Chong's brow. Beast taming art. Bzzz. This psychic energy was like a bright moon, like a star, imbued with a wild nature, like a running wolf or a wild bear. In a flash, it burrowed into the giant ape's brow and connected with its soul. Bzzz. Buzz. In an instant, the giant ape's entire body began to tremble. No. This is impossible. Within the giant ape's body, Mazel let out a scream of shock, as if he had encountered the most terrifying thing in the world. He had never imagined that this young Tang people could use the same psychic energy as his behemoth fusion art, a psychic energy technique that could enter the mind of a behemoth and control its soul. How could there be such a thing? Mazel's entire body began to tremble. After his initial shock and rage, the sky darkened as Mazel almost instinctively controlled one of his thick ape arms and smashed it at Wang Chong. The speed of this smash was several times faster than usual when it was in a state of fury. Just when the enormous ape arm was about to smash down on Wang Chong, even Wang Chong, a Saint Martial Tier 8 expert, was doomed to die. But at this moment, the inconceivable took place, boom. A huge boom rang out, and before the ape's arm could even smash down, another huge ape's palm suddenly rose up like a pair of steel pincers, firmly grabbing onto the arm that was about to smash down, blocking the shocking attack. Shock. Everyone who saw this sight was flabbergasted, so shocked that they couldn't speak. For a moment, the entire battlefield was eerily still. Even Abu Muslim and Ziad had noticed this abnormal sight. What's going on? The giant ape is hitting itself? Everyone on the ground was dumbfounded. This was impossible. Deep underground, Mazel cried out in alarm, his eyes flashing open in extreme shock. The behemoth fusion art was a secret art passed down from the ancient civilization, one that transcended the current era. Even though it was somewhat incomplete, its power was unquestionable. But now that he had control over the consecrated, these Tang people were still able to fight with him over control of the consecrated, and they had even succeeded in controlling one of its arms. This was simply unbelievable. At the very least, in Mazel's mind, this was something that could never happen. How could something like this happen? There can't be any technique that can compare to the behemoth fusion art. Mazel clenched his teeth, his eyes on the verge of bursting. Like I said, it's too early for you to be celebrating. At this moment, a voice rang out in Mazel's mind. Wang Chong was standing on the left shoulder of the giant ape. The fur on this part of the giant ape was extremely thick, and Wang Chong's fur reached his knees. He could even feel the bulging muscles beneath the fur, brimming with explosive power. Wang Chong raised his head to the giant ape's savage head, his eyes glimmering with a strange light. The beast-taming art was far more useful than he had imagined. Behemoths are essentially animals. As long as they're animals, the beast-taming art can be used. Wang Chong's eyes were brimming with excitement. At the start, he had been worried that the beast-taming art wouldn't work, or that he would run into some sort of obstacle, but Wang Chong quickly realized that the giant ape's body was brimming with the genes of all kinds of animals. Whether it was taming wolves, tigers, elephants, lions, the beast-taming art could be used on the giant ape's body. Chapter 987. So what if you can control one of the consecrated's arms? My abilities are far greater than you imagine. If you fight with me, you'll still die. Mazel savagely said. Boom! The giant ape's right arm shook, freeing itself from the grip of the left arm. At the same time, it punched out, circling around the giant ape to smash at the ant-like Wang Chong on the ape's shoulder. Pang! A pitch-black elbow enlarged from small to large, slanting horizontally. With a hung sound, it was like moving clouds and flowing water, immediately blocking the giant ape's hidden attack. Buzz! Mazel's face flickered. He was also controlling the giant ape's body, but the ape's arm had a completely different effect in Wang Chong's hands. The nimbleness of the arm were on a completely different level. At the very least, Mazel was not as nimble. In the end, Mazel was a psychic energy expert, but in terms of fighting skills, he was still far inferior to Wang Chong. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Now it's my turn. Wang Chong sneered. Waiting for death had never been his style. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong attacked. Boom! Wang Chong did not use the giant ape to counterattack. Instead, he sent a majestic stream of psychic energy through the giant ape's forehead and through the meridians, slamming into Mazel's mind. Aya! Unlike before, Mazel felt like he had been stabbed by a sharp needle, his soul trembling as he screamed. Huh, Mazel! Wang Chong suddenly called out Mazel's name. The more he used psychic energy, the more he could sense that it contained many secrets. After several clashes, Wang Chong had discovered many secrets, even the name of this Arab divine strength expert, Mazel. I've already seen through your secret. You have no chance against me. Wang Chong was not a pure psychic energy expert, nor did he have any experience in psychic energy battles. But in this battle with a psychic energy expert like Mazel, Wang Chong had rapidly grasped the mysteries of psychic energy, allowing him to rapidly gain experience in psychic energy battles. More importantly, although Wang Chong did not know the behemoth fusion art and did not have Mazel's vast experience, Wang Chong was able to understand the core mysteries of psychic energy while using the beast taming art. The key to mental power was in the depths of the eyebrows, the part of the brain. There were some special meridians in the human brain, which were related to mental power. If one's mental power ran in these special meridians, it was equivalent to hiding in a castle, which could greatly reduce the mental impact from the outside world. Thus, if he wanted to heavily injure Mazel and break the technique he had placed on the giant ape, he had to slowly expel Mazel's psychic energy. Bang! With this understanding of psychic energy, Wang Chong's psychic energy entered one of the meridians in his mind and slammed into Mazel's psychic energy. This time, without any obstruction, Wang Chong's psychic energy thorns had a completely different effect. Aya! Mazel screamed, his entire body trembling in pain. Even the giant ape was affected, its long and thick fur fiercely shivering. Damn! Mazel was both shocked and infuriated. He had never imagined that Wang Chong would so quickly understand the core mysteries of psychic energy. If Wang Chong could be said to be a layman before, he was now an expert, perhaps even a grandmaster. I won't let you go. No one can act so impudently in front of me. Mazel's mind seethed with hatred as he scanned the ground, his gaze suddenly passing over the retreating Tang soldiers. A thought flashed through his mind, and a sinister smile appeared on Mazel's face. Brat, do you really think that I can't do anything to you? Do you think that I don't know that you care about those ant-like soldiers the most? You fought me so desperately just to buy time to save them. Since that's the case, I'll let you see what happens to those who oppose me. I'll kill them all. At the end, Mazel's expression was savage and savage. Boom! A massive ape suddenly raised its leg and stomped down, charging toward a group of great Tang soldiers in the distance. Not good. Wang Chong grimaced. Just as Mazel had guessed, he had been fighting with Mazel in order to cover the retreat of the Tang dynasty soldiers. By attacking these ordinary soldiers, Mazel had struck right at his weak spot, which was precisely what Wang Chong feared and worried about. Ha ha ha. I've finally figured it out. You just want to protect those soldiers. Now, I'll let you have a taste of despair. Mazel proudly laughed as he controlled the giant ape to charge at the tens of thousands of Tang dynasty soldiers. At almost the same time, the Burning One, the Reaper, and the other behemoths raised their heads in response. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the four behemoths moved at the same time, abandoning their targets and charging at the retreating Tang army. Didn't you want to save them? Let me see how you save them. I'll kill them all right now. Mazel heartily laughed. In his battle with Wang Chong, he had always been at a disadvantage, but now, Mazel had finally discovered Wang Chong's weakness. Although he could not attack Wang Chong, his psychic energy allowed him to clearly see Wang Chong's pale complexion. All of this confirmed that his conjecture was correct. He would make this youth of the Tang dynasty pay the price for his arrogance. Nearby, nearly 600 Tang dynasty soldiers were retreating at full speed. Their armor was in tatters and stained with blood, and they appeared to be at their limits. Not good, it's the giant ape. He's charging at us. Everyone, run. Seeing the giant ape charging towards them, the group of people revealed looks of horror and scattered in all directions. Huh, do you think you can escape? I'll kill you first, and then I'll kill the rest. A savage smile appeared in Mazel's scarlet eyes as he looked down at them. He did not use his fists to attack, but raised one of his hairy feet and stomped down on the Tang dynasty soldiers. Given the giant ape's abilities, this stomp would be enough to obliterate all 500 Tang dynasty soldiers, man and horse alike. Come. Let me see how you'll stop me. Mazel's face was scornful and cruel to the extreme. Mazel had never cared about these ordinary soldiers, but as long as he could deal a blow to Wang Chong, he didn't mind personally killing them all. Bastard! Wang Chong's eyes went red. Just as the 500 Tang dynasty soldiers were about to die under the giant ape's feet, a violet sword chi as thin as a finger suddenly shot out from the giant ape's left shoulder and into the back of the ape's knee. The giant ape's foot was just about to descend when its entire leg suddenly went numb, causing it to pause in the air for 2 or 3 seconds. Damn it! Mazel clenched his teeth, immediately understanding that Wang Chong's sword had struck a vital point on the giant ape, causing it to be paralyzed. I'd like to see how long you can buy for them. You're just struggling at death's door. Boom! The consecrated's foot stomped down, creating a massive crater in the ground and sending large chunks of rock flying. But even so, Wang Chong's sword had still given them a chance to escape. The 500 Tang dynasty soldiers were still in a state of shock, but they still managed to escape the giant ape's attack range. You can save them for a moment, but you can't save them forever. Mazel sneered as he controlled the consecrated's left foot to continue the pursuit. But a moment later, Mazel was dumbfounded. The right foot that should have been following suddenly seemed to have a life of its own and began to step backward. After the consecrated stepped out with its left leg, its center of gravity was on its right leg, so the giant ape lost its balance and fell backward. You bastard! Mazel was both shocked and infuriated. He had never dared to believe that Wang Chong had managed to control the giant ape's other right leg in such a short amount of time, even causing the consecrated to intentionally lose its balance. I'll kill you. In his shock and fury, Mazel thrust a palm at Wang Chong's left shoulder, but Wang Chong blocked it as expected. Mazel, you're too conceited. I said before that I've seen through all your secrets. You can't win in front of me. Wang Chong's voice rang out in Mazel's mind. Standing on the giant ape's furry left shoulder, Wang Chong's eyes were cold and disdainful. As the most accomplished war saint of the Central Plains, Wang Chong's comprehension ability was unimaginable to someone like Mazel. Even though Wang Chong was not very skilled in the field of psychic energy, his foe had become Wang Chong's best teacher. Wang Chong had not only grasped the essence of psychic energy and understood Mazel's secrets. More importantly, by grasping the secrets of psychic energy, Wang Chong had also grasped the key to determining the outcome of this battle. Bang! A bolt of lightning seemed to explode in the world of Mazel's mind. Wang Chong's scattered psychic energy suddenly transformed into thousands of flood dragons that fiercely attacked Mazel. Unlike Wang Chong's previous psychic energy spikes, this attack was hundreds of times more ferocious. Boom boom boom. Wang Chong's psychic energy transformed into thousands of flood dragons that ravaged Mazel's mind, tearing, biting, clawing, and lunging. In a few short moments, Mazel's psychic energy began to rapidly weaken. Wang Chong's inexperience was nowhere to be seen. This fierce attack was like that of the most formidable psychic energy expert. This was the first time in Mazel's life that he had encountered such a fierce attack. Chapter 988. Brat. You're too arrogant. The world of psychic energy isn't as simple as you imagine it to be. Mazel shrieked. Whoosh! An enormous black demon god emerged from the Black Sea, wielding a trident, its body exuding black flames. The trident in its hand thundered like a bolt of lightning toward the flood dragons formed from Wang Cheng's psychic energy. Pang! A black flood dragon's lower jaw was pierced by the halberd, and it instantly exploded into a puff of black smoke, disappearing without a trace. The black demon god swept its halberd horizontally again, and with a series of loud booms, another 7 or 8 flood dragons were reduced to dust. The black demon god's attacks were clearly stronger than the dragons. However, no matter how powerful the black demon god's attack was, it could not withstand the storm-like attacks of thousands of flood dragons. In the blink of an eye, with a miserable howl, the black demon god immediately disappeared into the void. It's useless. In the psychic world, I have countless demon gods. You can't beat me. Mazel's gloomy voice resounded through the world. Before he could finish his words, 1, 2, 3. Tens of thousands of demon gods emerged from the surface of the Black Sea and attacked the flood dragons that filled the sky. This was a gruesome massacre, with flood dragon after flood dragon falling to the attacks of the black demon gods. But before Mazel could gloat for long, the flood dragons in the sky suddenly began to transform. The muscles on the forehead of one of the flood dragons bulged, transforming into a pair of knotted dragon horns. At the same time, the flood dragon's body began to swell. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. The flood dragons were now 10 times their original size. They were no longer flood dragons, but massive black dragons. What? Mazel's eyes went wide in disbelief at the transformation of the flood dragons. Mazel, if you're done with your moves, it's my turn now. Wang Cheng's voice rumbled like thunder, reverberating above the black ocean. Pooh! Before the voice had even died away, a black flame that was like a river spewed out from the dragon's mouth, instantly burning through the chest of a black demon god. That black demon god lowered its head, staring blankly at the large hole in its chest. A few seconds later, it exploded with a boom, turning into a cloud of black smoke. Damn it! Mazel's mind reeled in shock. I won't lose to you. I absolutely won't lose to you. Mazel, what other skills do you have? Wang Cheng's voice came down from the sky, and Mazel was instantly enraged by these words. Reckless fool. You've only learned a little bit of mental power, and you really think you can fight against me? Today, I'll let you know what the terrifying abyss is. Mazel clenched his teeth. As a noble priest and commander of the behemoth army, he could not allow himself to lose to a fledgling brat. Rumble. With a thought from Mazel, the black ocean underwent a massive transformation. All the black water vanished, replaced by an enormous maw. This massive mouth was unimaginably large, and the black dragons that Wang Cheng had transformed into were like specks of dust in comparison. The massive mouth swallowed all the black dragons in one gulp. You think you've seen through my secret? Laughable. This is the ultimate secret of psychic energy. Now that you've entered my abyssal world, you can forget about ever leaving. You will be my slave for all eternity. Mazel's voice rose and fell, brimming with boundless conceit. The world of psychic energy was a strange and treacherous place, and it contained countless techniques. But amongst all these techniques, the supreme psychic energy technique was unquestionably the psychic world. As a supreme psychic energy expert, Mazel had formed his own psychic world 10 years ago. In the process of helping the Arabian Empire invade the various countries, Mazel had used this technique to subdue countless psychic energy practitioners and martial artists, imprisoning their souls and making them his slaves for all eternity. The abyssal world. This was Mazel's unique ability. In the Arabian Empire, even the governors and great generals who didn't know any psychic arts knew of Mazel's abyssal world. The abyssal world could only be used once a month, and Mazel's mental injuries from his battle with Wang Cheng made it impossible for him to use the abyssal world. But Mazel's hatred for Wang Chong was too great to care about. He wanted to use the abyssal world to forever trap Wang Chong's soul in his mental world. Bzzz. The sky darkened as Wang Chong's black dragons were completely trapped in Mazel's psychic world. This ability, Wang Chong narrowed his eyes. Mazel's psychic energy was extremely unique and bizarre, but Wang Chong could still sense a flaw in this psychic world. This world was not as rigid as he had imagined. Let me see what else you can do now. Enter my psychic world. In 10 days, you'll slowly forget your memories of the past. When the time comes, you'll become my slave, obedient to my every command. The endless abyss roiled down below, and black energy surged in from all directions, swiftly condensing into Mazel's avatar. Mazel's face was brimming with the satisfaction of a victor. The best way to take revenge on an enemy was to kill them, and an even better way was to make them a slave for all eternity, forcing them to submit to one's will. Only now was victory truly within his grasp in this contest with Wang Chong. Is that so? A voice drifted down from the sky, and the tens of thousands of black dragons in the sky began to converge. In the blink of an eye, all the black dragons vanished. Wang Chong summoned a psychic clone of his and slowly descended from the sky. The armor on his body also began to change, slowly turning from black to gold and exuding a noble and divine aura. Boom! With Wang Chong's voice, a massive golden arm slammed into the abyss with the weight of a thunderbolt. It was just a simple palm, but in an instant, the entire abyss was immediately stirred up with huge waves. Even the entire world was shaking because of it. Although Wang Chong was not a psychic energy practitioner and didn't know many psychic energy techniques at the start, his psychic energy had been one of the best in the world from the moment of his rebirth. Due to the obsession in his heart, his mental strength was more tenacious and powerful than any other powerhouse in the world. For someone who had died once, there was no psychic energy technique that could make him submit. Wang Chong was sitting on a mountain of treasures. With his experience as the war saint and his top-class psychic energy, learning psychic energy techniques was as easy as turning over his hand. This massive golden arm was something that Wang Chong had comprehended in a short time by weaving his psychic energy together. This attack was already far stronger than the psychic thorns from before. It's useless. Mazel was at first dazed by this sight, but he quickly sneered. This is my world. No matter how capable you are, it's useless. In this place, you can't harm me. Everything is up to me. Wang Chong coldly snorted and ignored Mazel. In the blink of an eye, he gathered his psychic energy into another golden arm, even stronger than the last. But this time, it was aimed not at the abyss, but at Mazel. Rumble. The golden hand smashed down, pulverizing Mazel and causing the entire abyssal world to shudder. But a moment later, Wang Chong grimaced and pulled back the golden hand from the black abyss. As he focused his eyes, he saw that the golden hand had at some point been stained with an inky black liquid. This black liquid seemed to have a life of its own, traveling along the 5 golden fingers and spreading throughout the entire golden hand. Not only that, this inky black liquid also contained a powerful corrosive energy. As Wang Chong pulled back the golden hand, the 5 golden fingers began to corrode and fall to the ground. What is this? Wang Chong paled at this sight. Now do you know how powerful I am? Mazel coldly chuckled, his voice making no attempt to conceal his smugness. Several dozen feet away from Wang Chong, the black fog began to gather, revealing Mazel once more. The more you resist, the more severe your injuries will be. You're only harming yourself. In my view, you should obediently give up and submit to me. A strange light flashed through Mazel's eyes. Bzzz. The abyss suddenly vanished, and at some point, a thick, almost tangible darkness surged in from all directions. This darkness energy was identical to the black liquid that had stained Wang Chong's hand. Not only that, an enormous pressure as heavy as a mountain began to rapidly increase, accompanied by a thick darkness that pressed down on Wang Chong. Now, obediently accept your destiny. Mazel had long since vanished, and his resounding voice echoed through the darkness. As he spoke, the darkness around him suddenly accelerated and surged toward Wang Chong. Not good. Wang Chong grimaced, but there was nowhere to run in the abyssal world. Black smoke began to rise from Wang Chong's body, and his psychic energy began to rapidly weaken. Mazel had finally used his ultimate move, using the power of the abyssal world to rapidly assimilate Wang Chong. Success. Chapter 989. With his status in the Arabian Empire and the assistance of the Behemoth army, he had never been forced into such a sorry state before. He had consumed an enormous amount of physical energy, and even his most prided psychic energy had been greatly weakened. But everything had finally come to an end. The power of the abyssal world was something that no one could resist. This was a supreme power, and even the elite priests of Arabia would find it very difficult to escape from it, much less ordinary people. No matter how formidable this infidel of the Tang dynasty was, he was doomed to be assimilated into his world and become his puppet, forever following at his side. But a moment later, an intense ripple came from the other end of his mind. Boom! In Mazel's mind, a blazing ball of fire like a blazing golden sun suddenly exploded. This golden sun that suddenly appeared erupted with boundless heat, forcing back all the corrosive dark energy in all directions. Hiss! The corrosive energy in Mazel's psychic world immediately began to disperse like snow being poured into boiling water. This is impossible. Mazel's face paled as if he had been struck by a lightning bolt, the blood draining from his face like it was made of paper. His body trembled in shock, and he almost fell off the head of the centipede monster. Impossible. How could anyone resist the power of my abyssal world? This is impossible. The psychic world was the supreme technique of every psychic energy expert. Even the most resolute of great generals would find it difficult to escape if they accidentally fell into Mazel's psychic world. If not for the fact that Mazel's body was so weak that he feared it wouldn't be able to endure a battle with a great general, he would have already begun to attack them. But once he fell into the psychic world, everything changed. It can't be. It can't be. This must be a coincidence. No matter what, I have to kill you. Mazel closed his eyes and hardened his heart, pouring all his psychic energy into the mind of the consecrated. The more psychic energy one poured into the psychic world, the stronger the abyssal world would be. But the greater the risk, the greater the risk. If he failed, he might be consigned to eternal damnation and die. Therefore, even though they had a powerful top-notch mental technique like the spiritual world, almost all the esoteric mental powerhouses rarely used it. Even if they did, they would not put all their mental power into it. Mental energy was equivalent to the soul. When one's mental energy was exhausted, the soul would perish. But in order to deal with Wang Chong, Mazel had been driven to the brink of madness. Buzz! A moment later, Mazel's mind returned to the abyssal world. In the depths of the darkness, Wang Chong's aura had vanished, replaced by a blazing golden sun imbued with destructive energy. This was a dark world, but now, it had the brightest sun. Mazel had never encountered such a situation in his life. That's impossible. No one knows the secret of the sun. How did you do it? Although he knew that Wang Chong would not answer, Mazel still couldn't help but ask. Psychic energy experts could transform into all things, and there was almost nothing that was impossible, except for the sun. To psychic energy experts, this was a taboo. In the history of psychic energy that Mazel knew of, there had been many supreme psychic energy experts who had been able to use their minds to create a real moon, but none of them had been able to create a real sun. The best they could do was create a ball of light, because no one knew the true appearance of the sun. Some people had imagined the sun to be a massive ball of fire, but the result was only a ball of fire. But this radiant sun exuded the purest and highest level of heat that Mazel's abyssal world exuded. This was the dream of all ancient psychic energy experts. Not even Mazel could remain calm in the face of this energy. He truly had lost his composure. This radiant sun exuded boundless heat that even set Mazel's abyssal world ablaze. No powerful psychic energy expert of the past had ever been able to do such a thing. This was the true sun. The secret of the sun. Wang Chong chuckled, his voice coming from the blazing sun. What secret does the sun have? Isn't it the corona, the troposphere, sunspots, flares, and the core? To the two-time human Wang Chong, the sun was nothing more than an ordinary object. It was Mazel who was making a fuss over nothing. The corona, the troposphere, sunspots, flares, and the core, Mazel was at a loss. He recognized every word Wang Chong had said, but he had no idea what they meant when they were put together. Mazel had never heard of these words in any scripture, book, or psychic energy expert. He instinctively sensed that this was the core secret that all supreme psychic energy experts desired, but Mazel had no way of grasping it. Let me see just what the corona and flares are. Once I assimilate you, capture you, and turn you into my puppet, all your secrets will be mine to use. Mazel's eyes glimmered with a sinister light. If this was a truly powerful psychic energy expert, their mind able to create the purest radiant sun, Mazel would have immediately fled. But this Tang people had clearly only managed to create this power by chance and had not mastered it. His level of skill, experience, and abilities had clearly not reached that terrifying level. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and Mazel could not let it go. Rumble. The world shuddered, and the abyssal world formed from psychic energy seemed to come to life. The pure and corrosive darkness began to pour in from all sides. Abyssal apocalypse. This was the strongest attack of the abyssal world that Mazel had created. It gathered the energy of the abyssal world and was more than 10,000 times more powerful than a normal psychic energy attack. It was Mazel's final move against those extremely powerful and undefeatable foes. Although it was powerful, the abyssal apocalypse was only effective against foes trapped in one's psychic world. Wang Chong's ability to create a true sun was so powerful that Mazel felt suffocated. Only the abyssal apocalypse could defeat him. Bang! In a flash, Mazel's abyssal world collapsed and began to shrink at an astonishing speed. The pressure on Wang Chong's body also multiplying by thousands of times. This was a power that could destroy Wang Chong's soul. As Mazel's psychic world collapsed, Wang Chong's sun underwent a completely different transformation. Bzzz. The blazing sun first began to shrink, and then it began to swell. In the blink of an eye, it had grown to 1,000 times its original size, and the intense heat radiated from it began to radiate through the world. Mazel's body, now several dozen times stronger and brimming with corrosive darkness energy, began to madly combust and burn away at an astonishing rate. If one looked carefully, one would realize that the sun, created by Wang Chong's psychic energy, was becoming more and more detailed. The corona was rising and falling from the surface of the sun, creating countless waves of heat, and even the water droplets could be clearly seen. Further down, the tens of thousands of streams of air in the troposphere were constantly surging, their changes 100 times more complex than before. The sunspots and flares that had been motionless on the surface of the sun were beginning to move, constantly appearing and disappearing. In short, if he had only been able to simulate 10% of the sun at the start, Wang Chong was now able to use his psychic energy to simulate 30 to 40% of the sun. In addition, the heat exuded by this sun was getting stronger and stronger, and it was able to resist the entire abyssal realm with unstoppable momentum. This can't be real. Mazel's eyes were wide open, and his teeth were clenched so tightly that they were about to shatter. He simply couldn't accept this transformation. Wang Chong was growing far too quickly, something that no psychic energy practitioner had ever experienced before. But the more powerful Wang Chong was, the more Mazel's killing intent burned. The abyssal apocalypse could not be stopped. Once it was activated, it had to be carried out, or else the user would suffer an enormous backlash. Boom! The abyssal world continued to collapse, and it was even faster and fiercer than before. The pressure it exuded was even greater, and it was like an invisible hand was squeezing down, with Wang Chang's sun in the center of this hand. Rumble. As the abyssal world collapsed, Wang Chang's sun swelled once more, the details of its transformation growing more and more detailed. Mazel. It's useless. Your strength has no effect on me. Wang Chang's calm voice came out of the sun. Wang Chong had no idea that Mazel was using his strongest technique. As he battled with Mazel, he was gaining more and more experience. If Wang Chong had been groping about on his own, it would have taken him 10 years or even longer. But with Mazel's sparring partner, Wang Chong was able to skip these steps and reach an extremely high level of mastery. In some aspects, Wang Chong had fused Mazel's experience with his own insights, knowledge, and understanding. In some aspects, Wang Chong's psychic energy was even greater than Mazel's. All psychic energy is just an illusion. No matter how many techniques you have, how many abilities you have, it's like an itch to me. It's impossible for you to defeat me. Chapter 990. Buzz. Deep underground, Mazel's pupils constricted at Wang Chang's voice as if he had been stabbed. All psychic energy is just an illusion. Wang Chong had casually described the core essence of psychic energy, and this was the consensus of all top-class psychic energy experts. However, saying it was one thing. Those who truly understood this point and bowed to it were few and far between. Moreover, many people had only crudely interpreted it as psychic energy is fake. But if this was the case, why had so many people been assimilated, captured, and turned into puppets? Moreover, if the mental strength was fake, why did those martial arts experts die after the mental strength disappeared? The domain of psychic energy was far from simple, far more complicated than the superficial understanding people had put it. All psychic energy is just an illusion, had always been an irrefutable truth. But only 1 in a million could truly do it. Only those supreme psychic energy experts who could look down on the world could truly understand the meaning of these words and do it. 20 years ago, when Mazel was still a minor priest, he had heard someone say these words. But not even Mazel, the genius who had comprehended and created the abyssal world, had been able to reach this level. Mazel refused to believe that there was someone who had comprehended this supreme level faster than him. This can't be true, impossible. I refuse to believe it. Mazel's eyes were red as he bellowed. Rumble. The world trembled, and the sound of mountains collapsing and the earth cracking could be heard. Mazel's abyssal world also began to collapse, the pressure on the core of the world rapidly increasing. Under the immense pressure of the world, Wang Chang's sun of psychic energy was finally affected. The space around the sun was constantly being compressed, the surrounding space constantly twisting. Even the surface of the sun began to ripple, showing signs of trembling. Good. Mazel rejoiced at this sight, knowing that the abyssal world was finally taking effect. At this point in the battle, he had finally regained the initiative. As long as the abyssal apocalypse could shake Wang Chang's sun and affect him, he would be able to defeat the Tang people. But just when Mazel was preparing to increase the power of the abyssal apocalypse, a golden spear, divine, dazzling, and suffused with boundless energy, descended from the heavens. With a single strike, it pierced through the collapsing abyssal world. Cack-lack. Cracks began to spread across the abyss, and energy began to seep through them. No. Mazel let out a cry of despair. This spear had not only pierced through his psychic world, it had also taken away his last sliver of hope. The spiritual world was far more powerful than ordinary spiritual attacks. However, in order to use the ultimate technique of the spiritual world, one must first trap the opponent in one's own world. But now, the abyss had shattered, and everything no longer existed. Everything is just an illusion. Mazel, you've lost. Wang Chong's calm voice resounded. The abyssal world crumbled, and Wang Chong and Mazel were returned to their original world. Buzz. On the giant ape's left shoulder, half of Wang Chong's body was hidden in the ape's fur. His eyes were calm, as if he could see through all secrets. Wang Chong had long ago tempered his will to an extremely firm level. In this aspect, Mazel found it difficult to compare. Now is the time to end this battle. A cold light flashed in Wang Chong's eyes. The consciousness that had been trapped by Mazel merged with the consciousness of his main body and entered the giant ape's brain to unleash a torrent of attacks. Unlike before, this attack was swift, fierce, and all-pervasive. One meridian after another, Wang Chong forced Mazel's consciousness out of the giant ape's mind. Under Wang Chong's assault, Mazel was forced back again and again, his army in utter disarray. Impossible. I can't possibly lose. Mazel bellowed in fury, his teeth clenched as he used all his strength to resist, but he was still unable to stop Wang Chong's psychic energy attack that burned like lava and could melt metal. In the blink of an eye, Mazel's control over the giant ape dropped from 90% to 70%, and then to 50%, 30%. No matter how fiercely Mazel struggled, he could not escape the fate of being expelled by Wang Chong. Boom! Mazel's psychic energy was finally forced out by Wang Chong. But Mazel's psychic energy did not return to his body. Instead, it swayed through the air and entered the body of the roaring burning one several dozen zhang away. Squelch! The burning one turned its head and opened its mouth, spitting out a stream of lava tens of thousands of degrees at the giant ape. So what if you can imitate the sun? I won't lose to you. This battle will not end until one of us is dead. Mazel madly howled as he controlled the burning one to unleash another stream of flames at the giant ape. Roar! The ape roared. 2 spots on its body were burned by the burner's fire, and even its skin and flesh were burnt away, sizzling with black smoke. However, the damage the ape suffered was not as bad as expected. As the strongest of the 4 beasts, the consecrated's defense was far beyond imagination. Even the burner could not injure it with a normal fire. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Mazel, you've already lost. Stop struggling. A cold light flashed through the scarlet eyes of the great ape. He suddenly spread open his arms, bent his 2 thick legs at the knees, and suddenly leapt forward. Like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, he pounced towards the burner. Boom! The giant ape's head tilted to the side, and a surge of fiery light brushed past its ear. At almost the same time, one of the giant ape's arms smashed heavily into the burning one's neck. With a miserable howl, the burning one's body flipped over, its massive body kicking up a large amount of rubble and gravel as it flew through the air and crashed heavily into the ground. Ah! Cries of alarm came from all around, and countless figures began to retreat like they were avoiding the plague. Those Arab cavalry who had been in the middle of their slaughter were especially terrified, their eyes brimming with unease. They had been completely stunned by this sight. Translated by Hypersheep 325. The burning one's first attack on the giant ape had been a coincidence, but when the giant ape lunged at the burning one and began to fight, it was clear that things were not so simple. Damn it! What's the consecrated doing? Why is it fighting with the burning one? It's not the consecrated, but the burning one. Ah! Careful! They're coming at us. Where's Mazel? The behemoths are used to deal with the Tang people, not to kill each other. The burning one quickly got up from the ground, lunged forward, and bit down on the giant ape's right arm. The 2 behemoths quickly began to fight, and the Arab soldiers who saw the behemoths charging at them all paled in fright. They urged their horses to retreat to the rear, and the orderly formation instantly fell into chaos. But the battle between the behemoths had only just begun. Boom! The sky darkened as an enormous foot stomped down. The several hundred Arab cavalry paled, and before they could even run, they were crushed into meat paste. Bastard! Mazel, what are you doing? Hurry and take control of your behemoths. A furious roar came from the sky. Abu Muslim had been doing all he could to suppress Gao Xianji, intending to use this chance to kill the Anxi war god of the Tang dynasty, but the consecrated, one of the most important fighting forces on his side, had killed one of his own. This was an unforgivable mistake. But a moment later, Abu Muslim was left dumbfounded. Lord Governor, hurry and help me. I can't hold on for much longer. Mazel's panicked and urgent voice rang out in his ears. What's going on? Abu Muslim was flabbergasted by this voice. He had been so focused on dealing with Gao Xianji that he hadn't been paying much attention to Mazel's movements. He had never imagined that Mazel would be forced into this state. Just what happened? Could it be that the one controlling the behemoths isn't Mazel? Abu Muslim was truly flabbergasted. It's that brat from the Tang dynasty. He's about to take control of the entire behemoth army. Lord Governor, hurry and help me deal with him. Mazel's voice was extremely anxious, tinged with a deep despair. What? Abu Muslim's body trembled, his face covered in disbelief. He knew that this young commander of the Tang dynasty was an astonishing master of the art of war, but he had never imagined that he would be able to compete with Mazel in terms of psychic energy, and that he would even be able to force the commander of the behemoth army into this state. Bzzz. Abu Muslim scanned his surroundings and quickly noticed Wang Chong on the consecrated's left shoulder. Bang! As Abu Muslim was observing, the giant ape suddenly stepped forward and landed in the middle of the Arab army several dozen feet away. Aya! The earth quaked and screams filled the air as hundreds of Arab cavalry were crushed into meat paste by the giant ape's massive foot. On the other side of the great ape, the giant red lizard's movements began to slow down. Its body stiffened, and even the accuracy of the flames it spat out was wavering. It would be to the left of the great ape for a moment, and then to the right of the great ape the next. It couldn't accurately hit the great ape that was right in front of it. For a burner, this was definitely not normal. Chapter 991. Wang Chong was on the verge of simultaneously taking control of the Burning One and the Consecrated. The two behemoths continued to stomp down, inflicting severe damage to the nearby Arab cavalry. Damn it! Abu Muslim's thick brows burned with rage. Bzzz. Abu Muslim immediately threw off Gao Xianji and charged at Wang Chong on the giant ape's left shoulder. Boom! The world darkened as a massive black fist covered in golden divine armor punched toward Wang Chong. Before the fist even arrived, its enormous energy had already caused space to twist and crack like a spiderweb. The power of this punch far surpassed that of Saint Martial Tier 8, even that of an imperial great general, reaching a terrifying level. But a moment later, a sharp beam of sword chi pierced through Abu Muslim's 72 demon god pillar's fist. Although this attack was not as powerful as Abu Muslim's, it had chosen the perfect time and place to strike at the weakest point of Abu Muslim's fist energy. This sword instantly nullified Abu Muslim's attack. Abu Muslim, our battle isn't over yet. Where are you in such a rush to go? In a flash of light, Gao Xianji, dressed in armor, appeared in front of Abu Muslim. Gao Xianji's face was pale and devoid of blood, and his armor was in tatters. Bright red blood seeped out of the chinks in his armor. It was clear that he had been through an arduous battle. Even so, the smile on Gao Xianji's lips still remained, and he still maintained his composure and elegance. Gao Xianji. You're seeking death. Do you think that you can stop me in your current state? Abu Muslim's face was as cold as ice, his eyes blazing with rage. After so many battles, Gao Xianji was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Abu Muslim had originally believed that Gao Xianji would be tactful enough to dodge to the side, but he had not expected him to continue to fight. He was simply seeking his own death. Civil officials don't cherish talent, and military generals don't hesitate to die. This is their duty. If I were greedy for an easy life, I wouldn't have marched thousands of miles to this city of Talas. Today, no matter what, I will not take a step back. If Lord Governor has any trump cards, please use them. Gao Xianji held the sword in his right hand and smiled. His eyes were filled with determination. Abu Muslim's pupils constricted as he took a deep look at Gao Xianji, acting like he was getting to know him for the first time. Gao Xianji, I take back what I said earlier. You are a respectable opponent. A hint of respect appeared in Abu Muslim's eyes, and then he slowly straightened his body and took an extremely ancient bronze gauntlet from his bosom. The gauntlet was engraved with ancient characters, and images of gods and demons could be seen on its surface, even angels. The most dazzling of all was the large eye on the back of the gauntlet. The Eye of the Demon God. This was the name of this bronze gauntlet. The world to the west of the Tsong Mountains had developed in a completely different way from the Tang dynasty. An extremely powerful civilization had once existed here, and it had left behind many ruins and formidable artifacts. Unlike the Tang dynasty, all these ancient artifacts had belonged to the supreme ruler of the Arabian Empire, the Caliph. Abu Muslim's Eye of the Demon God had been bestowed upon him by the Caliph during an audience with the Caliph. There were two Eye of the Demon God gauntlet. One had been bestowed to Abu Muslim while the other had been given to the most revered first prince of the Arabian Empire. The laws and energy contained within the Eye of the Demon God had transcended this era. The Caliph had once gathered all the craftsmen and experts of the Arabian Empire in hopes of unraveling its secrets, but all their efforts had been in vain. But even so, there was one thing that could be confirmed. The Eye of the Demon God and Abu Muslim's 72 Demon God pillars art complemented each other and could greatly increase his strength. There was even a rumor that the Eye of the Demon God had been left behind by one of the 72 demon gods of ancient times. Although Abu Muslim had possessed the Eye of the Demon God for a very long time, he had rarely used it. Even when he encountered an extremely formidable opponent, Abu Muslim would not wear the gauntlet. As the valiant governor of Iron and Blood of the East, Abu Muslim would only wear the gauntlet when he encountered an opponent worthy of his respect, using this method to end his opponent's life as a sign of respect. Abu Muslim was no stranger to Gao Xianji's eyes. They were the eyes of those who had made up their minds and were ready to die. There was no doubt that Gao Xianji had chosen his fate, and he had decided to use this method to buy time and cover the retreat of the army. Even though Abu Muslim was filled with respect for him, he would not let him have his way. Gao Xianji, as a sign of respect, I will use this gauntlet to personally end your life. Abu Muslim raised the gauntlet in his hand and sternly said. With these words, Abu Muslim suddenly stepped forward and lunged at Gao Xianji. At the same time, a powerful energy surged out of the bronze gauntlet and burrowed into Abu Muslim's body. In an instant, this Governor-General Dongfang, who was already very powerful to begin with, reached an even more terrifying level. Bang! A pitch-black fist energy shot forward with unimaginable speed, pulverizing Gao Xianji's sword qi with a single punch. Pfff. Gao Xianji suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The armor on his body shattered, and he was blasted flying. Lord Gao. Wang Chong, who was mentally battling with Mazel, suddenly paled when he saw what was going on in the distance. Awo! The behemoth roared as the fiery burning one opened its mouth and spat out a stream of fire. But this stream of fire was not aimed at the giant ape, but at Abu Muslim. In his battle with Mazel, Wang Chong had gained control over 60% of the burning one, including its ability to spit fire. Lord Governor, save me! At almost the same time, Mazel let out a scream. Within the burning one's body, Wang Chong's attacks were fierce to the extreme. Mazel's psychic energy was already less than a third of what it used to be, and Wang Chong was continuing to whittle away at his psychic energy. Moreover, it seemed like he would not rest until he was dead. Boom! In a flash, Abu Muslim turned his head and punched out, scattering the burning one's fiery flames. Abu Muslim was also extremely worried. The situation was slowly beginning to spiral out of control. The behemoths that he had borrowed from the Caliph of Baghdad were slowly losing control and trampling over his own army. From the sky, one could see that every step of the consecrated and the burning one would land in the middle of the Arab army. Screams filled the air as countless Arab horsemen died on the spot, their corpses never leaving behind a complete pulp. In just a few short moments, the Arab losses had reached 4,000 to 5,000, and they were still rapidly climbing. Moreover, what worried Abu Muslim the most was that Mazel had a special status. He was the commander of the behemoth army, a rare psychic energy expert, and also the Caliph's most favored subject. He had an extremely high status in the empire, and his status was extremely important to Abu Muslim. He had borrowed the behemoth army, and it was also because of him that Mazel had appeared in the city of Talas. If anything happened to Mazel, the Caliph would definitely be enraged. And as the supreme ruler of the East, Abu Muslim would not be able to escape the blame. Bang! Abu Muslim was getting more and more anxious, and his attacks against Gao Xianji were getting fiercer and fiercer. Awoo! The sky darkened and the winds howled. Abu Muslim's body seemed to possess some sort of strange energy that could change the weather. Countless streams of energy began to converge on Abu Muslim's body. And behind Abu Muslim was a massive demon god, with horns and hooves, an ugly and lifelike face. It had suddenly appeared. The golden red pillar behind the demon god also exuded a mysterious aura. The countless ancient characters around it flickered in and out of existence, exuding an aura of destruction. Boom! This punch caused space to cave in, leaving behind a massive depression. Milord! In the blink of an eye, Qing Qianli pounced over, but he was sent flying by Abu Muslim with a single punch. The 72 demon god pillars art was imbued with the power of an ancient civilization. Not even Qing Qianli was a match for it. Vomiting blood, his chest caved in, and he crashed to the ground like a cannonball, heavily injured. Cries of grief and indignation rang out from the vast battlefield. Countless Tang dynasty soldiers paled at this sight, their breathing almost stopping. Bastard! Wang Chang's eyes instantly turned red. Gao Xianji and Qing Qianli were the two highest commanders of the Tang dynasty's western regions, and they were also people that Wang Chong respected. These people had fought for their country, spending half their lives guarding the border. They were true heroes. No matter what, these two could not be allowed to die here. Abu Muslim, you're seeking your own death. Suddenly, an enraged roar resounded through the heavens. A moment later, the earth quaked as the giant ape that had been fighting the burning one roared, bared its white fangs, and lunged at Abu Muslim in the air. The giant ape shot forward like a bolt of lightning, unleashing a massive fist that blotted out the sun as it lunged at Abu Muslim with the speed of a thunderbolt. The agility and flexibility displayed by the giant ape were something that Mazel could not compare to. It was like the abilities of a martial artist had been fused into the giant ape's body, giving it both immense strength and extraordinary martial arts. This was the most perfect form. Boom! The giant ape's fist stirred up an unimaginably powerful shockwave. Chapter 992. Asmodai's Wrath. Abu Muslim had finally used the most fundamental ability of the 70 demon god pillars art, revealing his true secret. Asmodeus was one of the 72 demon god pillars. He was ranked 32nd among the 72 demon god pillars. Although his status wasn't the highest, with his identity, he had entered the ranks of the upper 36 demon god pillars. This ranking alone was enough to show that Abu Muslim had obtained the power of an extremely powerful demon god. Roar! In a flash of light, the violet-black scaled demon god behind Abu Muslim suddenly transformed, its entire body transforming from one head to three, the head of a bull, the head of a man, and the head of a ram. The 3 heads were vicious and fiendish, and all 6 of its eyes were cold and emotionless, golden vertical pupils. Boom! A moment later, the 72 demon god pillars behind Abu Muslim, Asmodeus, with a chilling expression, punched out. Endless black energy gathered around him, and in the blink of an eye, the black energy transformed into a black dragon more than 30 zhang long. This black dragon was covered in black scales, and its mouth was filled with fine, sharp teeth. The most terrifying thing was that its body was surrounded by tens of thousands of black lightning bolts. Each bolt of lightning contained a destructive power. Abu Muslim's black dragon rumbled through the world, the momentum and power of this move enough to make many great generals pale in comparison. Boom! The massive hell black dragon and the giant ape's right arm collided, and a moment later, everyone was left stunned. Abu Muslim's body remained unmoved, but the giant ape's body swayed and roared as it lost its balance and staggered backward, almost falling to the ground. Impossible! How could Abu Muslim be this powerful? Even the giant ape is no match for him. On the distant hills, even Wuxia Wuzong and Dusong Mengpoch couldn't help but be stunned by this sight, expressions of extreme shock appearing in their eyes. This fist alone was enough to place Abu Muslim at the peak of all great generals. Even Wuxia Huizong and Dusong Mengpoch would have to admit their inferiority. Impossible! Could this bastard be even stronger than me? The celestial wolf great general Dewusili stood in the air, his face brimming with disbelief as he stared at the godlike Abu Muslim. As one of the best great generals of the Western Turkic Khaganate, Dewusili had always been conceited. Even long-established great generals like Wuxia Wuzong and Dusong Mengpoch had never been worthy of Dewusili's attention. The only person on the battlefield who could earn his respect was the invincible and invincible Anshi Protector General Gao Xianji. But Abu Muslim's punch, even the giant fist had been forced back. Not even Dewusili had been able to unleash such a powerful force. But even so, someone as proud as Dewusili would never admit to this. If not for the sake of our alliance, I would have come and fought with you right now. Dewusili viciously said to himself. Roar! A massive fist, even larger than Dewusili's horse and gleaming with the light of steel, came crashing down from the side. This fist was so powerful that it could shatter steel and even mountains. Damn it! Dewusili grimaced as he used the celestial wolf's divine procession and thrust his halberd forward. Bang! The enormous power of this blow forced the skyquaking giant back, and he hurriedly pulled back his right hand and began to blow. Truly a pack of beasts. Didn't I tell you already? I didn't come to deal with you. We're allies. Allies. Kill him. But Dewusili's words were answered by a furious roar. In the blink of an eye, nearby skyquaking giant had taken the lead and sent a massive fist smashing toward Dewusili. Behind this skyquaking giant, 1, 2, 3, countless skyquaking giants were lunging at Dewusili from all sides. He injured Mu-Gar. Kill him. The giants roared as they charged at Dewusili from all sides. Not even the Tang dynasty soldiers had any intention of leaving. Dewusili was one with his horse, using the celestial wolf's divine procession to travel through the air. The storm of energy around him was like the sun hanging high in the sky, attracting the attention of all the skyquaking giants. In the eyes of the skyquaking giants, Dewusili had already become their #1 target. The stronger he displayed, the more enmity the skyquaking giants would feel toward him. A bunch of bastards. Dewusili felt like his lungs were about to explode from rage at the sight of the giants charging at him. He had come from the distance with the intention of dealing with Wang Chong so that he could cooperate with the Arabs to finish him off. But to his surprise, a skyquaking giant had descended from the sky and landed at his side, immediately treating him as a target. Dewusili had only sent him flying. He had never expected that he would end up being surrounded by the skyquaking giants like a hornet's nest. Dewusili had already done his utmost to use the celestial wolf's divine procession to avoid them, but no matter where he went, the skyquaking giants would always come at him. Even though Wuxia had arrived on the battlefield, he still hadn't encountered Wang Chong. Not only that, with Wuxia's abilities, any skyquaking giant of any level would only be seeking death by recklessly challenging him. But the Turks and Uzun were allies with the Arabian Empire, and Wuxia could not kill them. As a result, the more skyquaking giants Wuxia killed, the more hatred he would attract. For a moment, Wuxia was in a difficult situation. In the distance, Abu Muslim's 72 demon god pillars fist had stunned the entire crowd. But while everyone was still reeling in shock over Abu Muslim's strength, a black shadow flashed forward, and a massive metal cudgel 10-some meters long, one end thin and the other thick, rumbled into Abu Muslim's body. This strike was so sudden that even someone of Abu Muslim's strength felt his stellar energy scatter, and he was sent flying like a cannonball. Buzz! Half the battlefield was eerily silent, especially the Arab cavalry, whose eyes were bulging out of their sockets as they stared at the sky. Even Deputy Governor Ziad was so shocked that he couldn't speak. The consecrated staff had been so well hidden that everyone had only seen it stagger from Abu Muslim's blow. No one had noticed the staff hidden by the giant ape, and no one had even noticed when it had appeared in its hand. So what if it's Abu Muslim? He's still no match for me. Wang Chong steadied the giant ape, his scarlet eyes staring at the distant Abu Muslim, exuding a cold and steely light. No matter how powerful Abu Muslim was or how many ancient artifacts he could not truly contend against a behemoth. In Wang Chong's hands, the giant ape was no simple behemoth. On this battlefield, Wang Chong was confident that he could defeat any powerful foe with the consecrated. Ah! Marquis, save me! Suddenly, a gale blew, and a miserable scream came from the distance, accompanied by the roar of a giant beast. Wang Chong turned his head and saw that the other two behemoths were rapidly approaching the retreating Tang army. Kill! With the help of the Reaper, these Tang people are dead for sure. Kill them. General has ordered that anyone who kills 100 Tang people will be rewarded with the rank of nobility and 10,000 gold coins. On the ground, tens of thousands of Arab cavalry were pursuing the behemoths, their eyes red and their armor drenched in blood, the vast majority of which was not their own. They had been suppressed by the Tang dynasty for so long. First, it had been Gao Xianji and the 70,000 soldiers of the Anxi Protectorate army who had held them off for 2 months, causing countless Arab soldiers to die. Then came Wang Chong and the Qixi Protectorate. Even renowned Arab generals like Umar and Nerman who had conquered many countries had died at their hands. And the 2 steel defense lines that the Tang dynasty had constructed in front of Talas had rendered the famed Arab cavalry useless. This had left all the Arabs with a pent-up anger, but now that everything was over, they could finally vent their anger and slaughter these godless Tang dynasty soldiers. As they listened to the screams and saw the soldiers of the Tang dynasty fall into pools of blood, the Arab scimitars stabbing through their chests and sending their corpses to the ground, they all felt an extreme joy. This is the battle we want. Henceforth, all of the East will bear the banner of our Arab people. An Arab general had a savage expression on his face as he stepped on the body of a Tang dynasty soldier and swung his scimitar across the Tang dynasty soldier's neck. As he watched the blood spurt into the air, the Arab general's eyes shone with excitement and cruelty. But this Arab general, immersed in slaughter, had no idea that while he was reveling in killing that Tang dynasty soldier, his actions had completely infuriated the distant Wang Chong. Damn it! You're all seeking your own deaths. Wang Chong clenched his fists, his mind bursting with rage. Mazel had taken advantage of his battle with Abu Muslim to secretly control the Reaper and the other behemoth to attack the Tang dynasty army, and the other Arab soldiers had also taken advantage of the chaos to plunder. Whether it was Mazel or these Arabs, Wang Chong was seething with killing intent. Chapter 993. BZZT. Buzz. Mazel had been stealthily controlling the 2 behemoths to deal with the Tang dynasty when he suddenly sensed this extremely thick killing intent, and his body involuntarily shivered. He and Wang Chong had been fighting each other from start to finish, but for some reason, Wang Chong now made him feel a deep fear. But before Mazel could understand, boom! Two enormous waves of psychic energy howled toward him. Mazel didn't even have time to react before the psychic energy he had attached to the two behemoths was pulverized by Wang Chong's psychic energy attack. Mazel, I'll never let you go. Wang Chong clenched his teeth, each word so cold that it made one's heart shiver. Bzzzt. After taking control of the two behemoths, Wang Chong launched a final attack on the will Mazel had left in the burning one's body. Tens of thousands of ripples of this will surged toward Mazel. No! Mazel cried out in fear. In his rage, Wang Chong's psychic energy was fiercer and sharper than it had ever been. Under the effects of this psychic energy, Mazel was forced back again and again, his entire body paling. He suddenly felt like a calamity was about to befall him. And Mazel was not the only one facing a calamity. On the ground, the thousands of Arab cavalry were still pursuing the retreating Tang dynasty soldiers. Their killing intent had been aroused, and all of them were in high spirits, oblivious to what was happening over their heads. No one knew that Wang Chong and Mazel, these two powerful psychic energy experts, had already begun to exchange blows. And no one noticed that the two behemoths that had been acting as the vanguard to crush the Tang dynasty soldiers had suddenly stiffened and stopped. Kill, kill, kill. Leave none alive. The Arab commander waved his scimitar, his expression savage as he urged the behemoths on. Since the beginning, he had killed more than 30 people of the Tang dynasty, including many generals of the Tang dynasty. Under the stimulation of slaughter and death, he became more and more excited and couldn't stop at all. Ah! Suddenly, a panicked voice came from beside him, accompanied by bursts of commotion. Damn bastards, what are you doing? Charge! The leading Arab officer was enraged. The Arabs currently held the upper hand, the perfect opportunity to pursue the Tang people, but someone had actually dared to make such a fuss and deliberately disturb the morale of the army. They deserved to be killed. But very quickly, he felt that something was wrong. Even though they heard his orders, the chaos in the army did not stop. Instead, it became more and more intense. The soldiers who were screaming in panic looked up at the sky with pale faces and terrified expressions. It did not seem like they were faking it. What's going on? The Arab commander subconsciously raised his head in shock, but a moment later, the sky darkened and he saw an enormous foot in the sky, stomping down at him with astonishing speed. The wind howled, and the stench of blood in the air thickened to the extreme. The behemoth? The Arab officer trembled, his eyes wide with fear. But before he could understand what was going on, the enormous foot stomped down. Boom! The earth trembled, and the Arab officer screamed in fear as he and the surrounding Arab cavalry were pulverized into meat paste, blood gushing out of the behemoth's foot. A whoa! A bestial roar resounded through the air. By the time the white bear raised its foot, the ground was covered in deformed armor and chunks of flesh, making it impossible to tell who they were. Run! The general has been killed. The behemoth has lost control. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over the battlefield. The Arab cavalry that had been excitedly pursuing the Tang people instantly panicked, their formation falling into disarray as they fled in every direction. However, before they could escape from this white bear that was like a mountain range, in the blink of an eye, rumbling sounds could be heard. Another enormous foot with tremendous force stomped down. After the white bear, the other behemoth began to attack the Arabs. What's going on here? The behemoths have gone crazy. They've all gone crazy. The assault of the two behemoths had caused an astonishing reversal on the battlefield. A moment ago, the thousands of Arab cavalry had been excitedly pursuing the Tang people, but a moment later, the Arabs had become the behemoths' targets. The Arabs had been completely unprepared for this change, and they had instantly suffered grievous losses. And this was not the only change on the battlefield. While the two behemoths were attacking the Arabs, several hundred zhang away, the fiery red burning one suddenly opened its mouth and unleashed a torrent of scorching lava 100 meters long at a large group of Arab cavalry. These Arab cavalry were completely unprepared, and they were instantly incinerated along with their horses. In just a few seconds, all of them had been burned to ash. The burning one's flames were like an endless river, sweeping back and forth, and in a few short moments, thousands of Arab cavalry had been caught in its flames. The combined assault of the three behemoths instantly inflicted grievous casualties on the Arabs. 9,000, 13,000, 18,000, 24,000. Under the assault of the behemoths, the number of Arab casualties reached an astonishing level, and it was only continuing to climb. The entire army was in a state of panic, and even Ziyad was at a loss for what to do. 30,000, 35,000, 40,000, the number of Arab casualties on the battlefield continued to increase. Slap. In the middle of the army, Burke suddenly slapped a red-robed attendant holding a bone flute in the face. The tremendous force caused half of his face to swell up. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and he even spat out a tooth. Hurry and take control of the behemoths. Don't you see how many of us have died? Once Lord Governor returns, I will have His Excellency execute all of you. Bakr's face was twisted in rage. As a famed Arab general, Bakr had conquered many countries, but now, he was leading the caliph's behemoths to slaughter the Arab cavalry. Killing one's own people was a disgrace. Milord, the behemoths are only controlled by Lord Mazel. We are only assisting him. Only Lord Mazel can control the behemoths. The red-clothed attendant was trembling with fear, and his face was filled with terror. What? Bakr was stunned. This answer had far surpassed his expectations. Bang! Bakr punched out, sending Mazel's attendant flying to the ground, the immense power of his punch breaking many of his ribs. Truly a bunch of trash. While the Arabs from top to bottom were thrown into chaos by the attacks of the three behemoths, the Tang soldiers in the midst of their retreat had a completely different reaction. These behemoths are attacking their own people. The sight of the corpses strewn across the battlefield and the charred corpses of the Arabs left all the soldiers of the Tang dynasty dumbstruck. All of them had been prepared to fight to the death, but none of them had expected such an astonishing development at the final moment. Marquis. It must be Marquis. Marquis is controlling these behemoths. A soldier of the Qixi Protectorate suddenly called out, a look of elation on his face. Although they didn't know what had happened, they instinctively thought of Wang Chong. If there was one person on this battlefield who could reverse the tides and change everything, it had to be Wang Chong. This was their unshakable conviction. Marquis. 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 The panicked Tang dynasty soldiers who had been retreating eastward quickly stopped and began to cheer. First the Qixi Protectorate Army, then the Anxi Protectorate Army, the mercenaries of the western regions, and the pikemen of greater and lesser valor began to cheer. Chonger, you truly did not disappoint your father. At this moment, no one was more gratified than Wang Chong's father, Wang Yan. As he looked at Wang Chong on the giant ape's shoulder, he felt a tinge of heartache, but even more so, pride. Pass on my order. Change tactics. Gather the army. Counterattack Arabia. Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Yan immediately changed tactics and gathered the army for a counterattack. Kill. In a few short moments, the infantry under Wang Yan's command had finished assembling. The tens of thousands of Tang dynasty soldiers, shield men at the front, axe men at the back, and cavalry bringing up the rear, formed a clear and distinct formation that was extremely conspicuous on the battlefield. Only Wang Yan, who had a calm and steady combat style and was extremely experienced, would be able to do this in a battlefield where the entire front line was being routed. The Wang clan was a clan of ministers and generals, and it had a profound legacy in the art of war. Although Wang Yan's strength was not on the level of Gao Xianji's, in terms of experience, he could probably be counted on one's fingers. When tens of thousands of soldiers gathered on the battlefield, especially the infantry formation which had the strongest defense, the morale of the army was immediately boosted. The originally scattered army quickly formed into countless formations, and even the mercenaries who were originally only concerned with escaping stopped in their tracks and formed into rows and rows. This sudden change left everyone who saw it dumbfounded. Impossible. The army is already in such a state of defeat, but they're still able to regroup, and their morale is still so high. As expected, when making enemies with the Tang dynasty, one has to be careful at all times. One can't let down their guard. On the high hills, Wuxia Wuzong watched in shock as the Tang army swiftly assembled and began its counterattack. Chapter 994. The Tang dynasty cannot be underestimated. In the entire continent, only they can contend against the Arabs. Dusong Mengpoj stood on the side, his hair flying in the wind. He was no less shocked than Wuxia Wuzong. The quality and training of the Tang dynasty's soldiers was something that other factions could only look up to. Dusong Mengpoj was known as the Eagle of the Plateau, and he was brimming with ambition for the empire. Alas, though he was conceited and had the ability to command soldiers that was on par with any great general, perhaps even superior, Uzun's faction could not compare to the Tang dynasty. The Tang dynasty currently only had 7 great generals on the surface, but if one added Wang Yan, Qing Qianli, and Xian Yuzhongtong, who had the strength of great generals through their formations, there would be more than 10. And if one added Wang Zhongxi, who had retired to the center and become the crown prince's junior guardian, as well as those who had gone into seclusion, there would be even more. Moreover, there was also Wang Chong, who, though not at the great general level of strength, was a heaven-defying existence that not even great generals could compare to in the art of war and strategy. Abu Muslim's status in the Arabian Empire was already on the same level as Zhang Shogui and Wang Zhongxi, and the number of people who could surpass him could be counted on one hand. With his army of 300,000 soldiers, Abu Muslim had conquered and destroyed countless countries. Even the Khorasan dynasty, a powerful existence that had been on par with Uzun and the Western Turks at its peak, had ultimately been destroyed by Abu Muslim's army. But this powerful army had first been held back by Gao Xinji for 2 months, and then, with the absolute advantage in numbers and a behemoth army in Skyquaking army, 2 powerful armies that could dominate the battlefield, the Tang dynasty had still managed to reverse the situation. Only the Tang dynasty could accomplish such a feat, and this was not even 1/5 of the Tang dynasty's army. Just the thought of it was enough to make Dusong Mengpoj's heart turn cold and fill him with intense apprehension. All of this is because of him. Dusong Mengpoj's gaze quickly focused on the Tang dynasty youth on the giant ape's shoulder. Uzun had the chance to not only defeat the Tang dynasty, but also unite with Meng Shizhao to occupy the fertile land in the southwest of the Tang dynasty and then conquer the central plains. But because of that youth's appearance, first the southwest was routed, then the plateau epidemic, then Zhangzhung was destroyed, and then the northern army was completely wiped out. In front of the 2, Daluan Ruozhen's gaze changed. He raised his hand several times and put it down again. In the end, he did not issue the order to send out the troops. At this moment, on the battlefield, Wang Chong was standing on the giant ape's left shoulder, observing the entire situation, using the 4 giant beasts to quickly control the overall situation. These trump cards that Abu Muslim relied on the most had now become Wang Chong's greatest weapon against the Arabs. Now is the time for all of you to pay the price. Wang Chong looked down on the battlefield, his expression frigid as he gazed at the panicked and fleeing Arab cavalry. Roar! The 3 behemoths, under Wang Chong's control, began to massacre the Arab army. Boom boom boom. One giant foot after another stomped down, and this simple action was enough to claim the lives of thousands of Arab cavalry. And the burning one was constantly spewing out flames that included all the Arab cavalry in a radius of several hundred zhang. The earth was aflame, and countless soldiers were felled by the flames of the burning one. Once the burning one's flames burned away all the oxygen in the air, many soldiers would suffocate to death. Aya! The screams of those on the verge of death resounded over the battlefield of Talas. At this moment, the entire battlefield was engulfed in roaring flames and black smoke. Mountains of corpses were piled up, and the air was filled with the ashes of burning corpses. The losses of the 200,000 Arab soldiers had reached an astonishing level, and even many generals had lost their lives. Countless soldiers were fleeing to the west. Damn thing! Abu Muslim stood in the air, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at the corpses strewn across the ground and the retreating army. Even his steely fists were fiercely trembling. Boom! Abu Muslim's body swayed as he vanished into the void, reappearing in the air above the giant ape. Die! Abu Muslim's voice resounded through the sky as the enormous three-headed demon god Asmodeus and the golden-red pillar once more emerged from the dark clouds. Boom! Without the slightest hesitation, Abu Muslim punched, and a black dragon the size of a fortress roared as it shot forward with thunderous speed toward Wang Chong on the giant ape's left shoulder. Bang! In a flash, a massive metal cudgel swept forward, pulverizing the destructive energy of Abu Muslim's hell-black dragon. A moment later, the black ape's body shot forward, its long tail swinging as its other arm fiercely lashed out at Abu Muslim. This punch was fast and vicious, bursting with power that could shatter mountains. Moreover, the angle of the attack had been meticulously calculated. In the face of this attack, even the governor of Iron and Blood couldn't help but widen his eyes, his face grimacing, and his body swayed as he retreated to avoid this attack. Abu Muslim, you can't beat me. In this battle, just watch as I use your most precious behemoths to kill off all your soldiers. Wang Chong stood on the giant ape's shoulder and coldly chuckled. Abu Muslim's attack had been completely within his expectations. The giant ape's strength was fused with his experience, strength, and rich battle techniques as a war saint. At this moment, Abu Muslim had no advantage over him. Wang Chong was completely capable of anticipating any of his attacks. From a certain perspective, Wang Chong was even stronger than he had been in his last life. Young man, you will definitely die at my hands. You won't be able to be smug for long. Abu Muslim's face was ashen and nasty, but it was also filled with extreme rage. He had no time to worry about Gao Xianji. His priority was to kill Wang Chong. Only then could he resolve the situation. Boom! Abu Muslim's body trembled as the eye of the demon god once more exploded with light. In a flash, the sky was filled with dark clouds and fierce winds. Boundless energy of the world gathered from all around, and behind Abu Muslim, the 72 demon god pillars, Asmodeus, had grown even larger. Bang! Abu Muslim's eyes burned with fury as he gathered up all his strength and once more charged at Wang Chong like a bolt of lightning. On the ground, Wang Chong looked up at the sky and sneered. Beneath him, the giant ape bared its fangs and looked up at the same sky as Wang Chong. Then, with a stomp of its feet, it shot into the air and attacked. This battle had completely fallen into Wang Chong's rhythm. Even though it was the governor of Iron and Blood who had challenged Wang Chong had managed to turn this into a battle between Abu Muslim and the strongest consecrated. Wang Chong, on the other hand, had remained uninvolved. Mazel, now it's your turn, the main culprit. While the giant ape and Abu Muslim were fiercely battling, Wang Chong's attention was focused elsewhere. Although he had succeeded in expelling Mazel's consciousness from the four behemoths, Wang Chong was well aware that Mazel was still alive. For the Tang dynasty to fall into such a state at Talas, with so many casualties and even Gao Xianji and Qing Qianli heavily injured, Mazel and his behemoth army could not escape the blame. With so many dead, Wang Chong would never allow him to escape and start another war. Buzz! Without the slightest hesitation, Wang Chong sent the other half of his mind out of his body, burrowing into the earth. Lost, lost. I have to report this to the high priest. There shouldn't be such a powerful psychic energy expert here. At this moment, deep underground, a centipede-like monster was fleeing at high speed. Mazel was crouched on the monster's head, one hand pressed against it as he gasped for breath. His mouth, ears, eyes, nose, and even his skin were bleeding profusely. His appearance was wretched, and even his aura was extremely weak. This battle with Wang Chong had not only dealt a heavy blow to his psychic energy, but also placed a heavy burden on his body. Wang Chong was correct when he said that psychic energy was illusory. But Mazel was also keenly aware that psychic energy could not be fake. This was not the way to understand it. Mazel had only been wounded in the psychic energy, but even his internal organs were bleeding. If he were to stay here any longer, he would really be on the road to death. Too terrifying. This battle is no longer important. The loss of the battle is all Abu Muslim's responsibility. For the Tang dynasty to produce such a psychic energy expert, one whose soul can even imitate the blazing sun and incinerate all things, is unacceptable. As long as this person is here, our behemoth army will be useless. Mazel's mind was in a state of panic. This journey to the east had been the most terrifying of nightmares, something that Mazel had never imagined possible. Right now, Mazel was like a stray dog, only thinking about escaping as quickly as possible. I have to invite the high priest. Only the high priest can deal with him. Chapter 995. The high priest was Mazel's true master, but Mazel had never dared to call him that. He was not the only disciple the high priest had taught. There was no one in the Arabian Empire who did not fear the high priest, and even the caliph treated him with respect. As he was thinking, Mazel's body suddenly trembled as if he had run into an invisible wall, and he came to a sudden stop. Mazel was at first dazed, but when he realized what had happened, he flew into a rage. "Beast, get out of here!" Mazel roared as he pulled out a brown dagger and plunged it into the head of the centipede monster. For some reason, this terrain monster had suddenly stopped. The feeling that Mazel had felt as if he had crashed into a wall was actually the result of this monster coming to a sudden halt in its rapid motion. But Mazel was left dumbfounded by what he saw. In the past, a single stab from Mazel would cause the centipede monster to howl in pain, but this time, the monster didn't even move after being stabbed. It was as if it had been petrified. Damn it! What's going on here? Mazel was both shocked and infuriated. The dagger in his hand stabbed down several more times, leaving a hole in the centipede's head. Green blood began to flow out, but the centipede monster remained motionless, its body frozen in the ground as if Mazel had stabbed an empty shell. Bastard! Mazel was truly beginning to panic. The threat of Wang Chong was right behind him, and the slightest mistake could lead to his death. Mazel, there's no need to waste your energy. This monster is already under my control. As I said, you can't escape. At this moment, an indifferent voice rang out above Mazel's head. This voice was flat and indifferent, but in Mazel's ears, it was like a thunderclap that struck him like a bolt from the blue. Wang Chong. Mazel's body trembled as if he had been struck by lightning. There was no doubt that this was the voice that Mazel wanted to hear the least. At this moment, a deep fear finally appeared in Mazel's eyes. But that was not the only thing that frightened him. As Wang Chong spoke, the stilled centipede monster seemed to come back to life, its massive body beginning to move. But the centipede monster was advancing in the direction that Mazel feared the most. Mazel watched as it turned around. Not only did it not flee to the west, it began to lead Mazel toward Wang Chong's position. Bastard! Stop right there. Mazel was in a complete panic. His dagger continued to stab at the centipede monster, and at the same time, he sent a part of his psychic energy into the centipede's mind in an attempt to regain control over it. But what greeted him was a merciless psychic attack. Boom! Mazel's psychic energy was instantly pulverized. You'd better give up. In front of me, you're just a real ant. You won't have any room to resist. Wang Chang's cold voice rang out, but this time, it was directed into Mazel's mind. No, I won't. I can't lose to you. I am the commander of the behemoth army, an important minister of the caliphs. I can't lose to anyone. Mazel's eyes were red as he howled, on the verge of insanity. Go and tell these things to the soldiers of the Tang dynasty you killed. A chilling killing intent appeared in Wang Chang's eyes as his psychic energy burrowed into Mazel's forehead and began to invade his body. No. I won't lose to you. Mazel roared and struggled, but he was powerless against Wang Chang's assault. He clenched his teeth and began to counterattack. Boom boom boom. Their psychic energies clashed. Mazel knew that his life was on the line, and in his desperation, he was forced to use all his potential. But after hundreds of clashes, Mazel was still defeated. The psychic energy domain was far more ferocious than he had imagined. Finally, I've lost. I beg you, let me go. I swear that I will never take a single step into the Tang dynasty. Mazel's eyes were no longer as arrogant as before, now brimming with pleading. He could sense a clear killing intent in Wang Chang's psychic energy. It was clear that Wang Chong wanted to kill him to avenge the deaths of the Tang dynasty soldiers. Humph, too late. I will first turn you into a puppet, and then I will torture you until you die in pain. Only then will you pay the price for your actions as an offering to the heroic souls of the Tang dynasty. Wang Chang's voice was as cold as ice. Under the control of his psychic energy, the brown centipede monster continued to approach him, rising from the depths of the earth. Rumble. In Mazel's mind, Wang Chong occupied every meridian, controlling Mazel like a behemoth. With each meridian Wang Chong controlled, he could see many things. Mazel's experiences and psychic energy techniques were laid bare before Wang Chong, all of them becoming Wang Chong's spoils of war. Wang Chong saw Mazel grow up in a dark, crude, and poor alley. He saw him fight over food with a stray dog, saw him frighten away a group of children with his fierce face, and saw him use a blunt knife to stab a child who had mocked him during the day in the middle of the night. From this point on, Mazel embarked on a completely different life. Wang Chong also saw Mazel follow a mysterious black-robed man into a temple, practicing various psychic energy techniques. Many psychic energy techniques flowed into Wang Chong's mind, becoming his own. Wang Chong was not a pure psychic energy expert, nor did he have a complete system of theories. He certainly wasn't like Mazel, who had unexpectedly inherited an ancient psychic energy legacy. All these things that Mazel knew became nourishment for Wang Chong, helping him make up for what Wang Chong lacked in the field of psychic energy. At the beginning, Wang Chong had been staggering in the field of psychic energy, relying entirely on his own abilities to fumble about in the dark and unknown. But now, with Mazel's theories and experiences, Wang Chong was rapidly maturing into a true psychic energy expert. This was why Wang Chong had not just killed Mazel, but had instead taken control of the centipede monster and brought him to him. However, perhaps because he knew that disaster was imminent, Mazel's resistance only intensified. Moreover, Wang Chong had still not obtained the secret and method of raising the behemoth army that he was most concerned about. Besides that, Wang Chong could clearly sense that there was an even greater secret hidden deep within Mazel's mind. Wang Chong had no way of knowing what this secret was, but from Mazel's reaction, he could tell that this secret was extremely important to him, even more important than the secret of the behemoth army. Let me see just what secret you're hiding. Wang Chong stood on the shoulder of the behemoth, his eyes cold and piercing. Boom! The skies suddenly darkened as an enormous black dragon of hell charged down at Wang Chong. Behind the black dragon, a figure floated in the air, his black cape flapping in the wind. Abu Muslim stared at Wang Chong, his eyes bursting with killing intent. However, at the next moment, the air currents in the air surged, and a huge ape arm swept across the void, smashing the hell-black dragon into pieces with a single punch. Roar! The giant ape roared, its aura like that of a primordial beast causing countless warhorses to neigh and flee in fear. After blowing apart Abu Muslim's hell-black dragon with a single punch, the giant ape swung its left arm, sending a massive metal cudgel sweeping toward Abu Muslim's body. Its movements were fast and nimble, completely disproportionate to its massive body. The illustrious governor of Iron and Blood Abu Muslim was actually unable to take a single step forward against the giant ape controlled by Wang Chong. Bastard! I'd like to see how long you can last. As the Abbasid Caliphate's governor of the East, the supreme ruler from Khorasan to Samarkand, Abu Muslim was not the type to lose his cool, but after all this time, all his attacks had been blocked by a giant ape and he still hadn't been able to finish off that Tang dynasty youth. Abu Muslim couldn't help but feel a tinge of anger. And what made Abu Muslim even more worried was that the three mountainous behemoths and the tens of thousands of Tang dynasty warriors had instantly put the Arabs at an absolute disadvantage. The Arabs were in complete disarray, suffering grievous casualties. In Abu Muslim's life as governor of the East, he had never suffered such a major defeat. Ziyad. Abu Muslim's eyes flashed with cold light as he stared at the consecrated, which was like a primordial beast. But Abu Muslim had barely finished speaking when a roiling black energy tinged with gold and red surged out of the giant ape's back and rumbled toward Wang Chong like a dragon. At the center of the black gas, upon closer inspection, one would be able to see a bronze-colored snake-patterned ancient ring. The Ocean Ring was another of the Abbasid Caliphate's extremely valuable ancient artifacts. After Ziyad had rendered great service in the army, Abu Muslim had put in a good word for him, allowing him to be rewarded by the Caliph and obtain this ancient artifact. This was one of the Abbasid Caliphate's two stabilizing artifacts in the East. It was precisely by relying on this ocean ring that Ziyad had been able to reach the great general level and contend against Qing Qianli's supreme desolation god, even firmly suppressing the supreme desolation god. Unlike Abu Muslim, Ziyad was extremely stealthy, like a snake slithering through the darkness. Ziyad's attack had given no warning, and there was no hint of energy, but when Wang Chong's attention was drawn to Abu Muslim, Ziyad had immediately circled around and attacked. Chapter 996. Bang! But just when Ziyad was preparing to launch a pincer attack with Abu Muslim to kill Wang Chong, there was a flash of flame that was even more dazzling than the sun. It struck the ocean ring that Ziyad had thrown out. This terrifying energy instantly blew apart all the stellar energy Ziyad had attached to it, and the enormous energy even sent Ziyad's ocean ring flying. Burning One. Ziyad paled at the abrupt turn of events. At a time like this, only the Burning One could shatter the attack of a peak great general like Ziyad with a single breath of flame. Damn it! Ziyad's heart sank. The Burning One was even further back than he was. For Wang Chong to be able to borrow the Burning One's strength to shatter his attack meant that he had already predicted his movements. Ziyad, did you really think that you could hide from me? A voice came from the giant ape's shoulder. Wang Chong had a playful expression on his face. Both Abu Muslim and Ziyad had greatly underestimated the abilities of a psychic energy expert. On the entire battlefield, Wang Chong could borrow the vision of any behemoth to observe every corner of the battlefield. No matter how Ziyad tried to conceal his movements, it was useless against Wang Chong. Ziyad, you should just play around with it. Wang Chong had barely finished speaking when a massive bear paw, as white as frost, came slapping down from the side like a tsunami. Ziyad fiercely turned his head, but he only had time to unleash a burst of black energy before he was sent flying by the bear paw. Behind him, a behemoth roared, a white bear with savage eyes pursuing Ziyad with astonishing speed. Even farther away, the Burning One had spat out a mouthful of flames to stop Ziyad, and then it turned its head and continued to spit out flames at the fleeing Arabs. In terms of power, the Burning One might not be the strongest, but the flames it spat out were actually the most powerful on this battlefield. Through the four behemoths, Wang Chong had complete control over the battlefield. With a thought, he quickly gathered his psychic energy on Mazel's body. Mazel was only 100 feet below Wang Chong. More importantly, Wang Chong sensed that the psychic energy attack against Mazel had reached its final stage. In just a few moments, he would have complete control over Mazel. Wang Chong, you will regret this. Underground, Mazel gave a cry of despair. His spiritual energy retreated little by little, becoming weaker and weaker. He was no match for Wang Chong at all. It looked like it was about to be controlled by Wang Chong just like the giant beast from before. But what shocked Mazel the most was that as Wang Chong launched his psychic energy attacks, he was also gaining experience in the psychic energy domain. Wang Chong was getting more and more proficient in his attacks, even using the techniques he had comprehended against him. Mazel's hopes of escaping from Wang Chong's grasp were dwindling. Wang Chong's expression was cold and aloof. Ignoring him, he only increased his attacks on Mazel. Wang Chong, let me go. I can be your slave. I can help you control the behemoth army. The stench of death grew stronger and stronger, and Mazel could no longer hold back his pleas. There's no need. I can control the behemoth army myself. Wang Chong's attitude was as firm as steel. He would not tolerate the commander of the behemoth army in the slightest. Ha ha ha, do you think you know all the secrets of the behemoth army? You can't control them. Only I can control them. I am their true master. Let me go. As long as I live, I'll tell you everything. Mazel was at first dazed by Wang Chong's words, and then he began to shout. There's no need. Once I control you, I'll know all your secrets. Wang Chong hated Mazel to the extreme, so he would not listen to his excuses. You won't have that chance. You still haven't completely grasped the mysteries of the psychic energy domain. If I self-detonate, you won't get anything. Mazel anxiously said. Wang Chong's brow creased as he slightly slowed his attacks. Right. Right. Let me go. As long as you let me go, I can tell you anything. There's no need for you to go to so much trouble. I can tell you anything. Mazel immediately sensed a sliver of hope from Wang Chong, and like a drowning man grasping at straws, he frantically called out, Wang Chong. Wang Chong fell silent. Although he did not completely believe Mazel's words, he had to consider the possibility that Mazel might self-detonate. Wang Chong, you are a great hero, the commander of the Tang dynasty. I am just a servant of the Arabian Empire, obscure and without status. Abu Muslim threatened to kill all my people, so I had no choice but to obey his orders. I am just a knife in someone else's hand. None of this has anything to do with me. Why do you have to bother with a lowly person like me? Let me go. The benefits to you far outweigh the disadvantages. I can even get more intelligence from the Arabian Empire for you. Think about it, the Arabs started this war. Don't you want to take revenge on them? Mazel chattered on, his potential exploding under the pressure of death. As he spoke, he saw that Wang Chong seemed to be persuaded. Mazel's head lowered lower and lower, his expression becoming more and more humble, all traces of his previous arrogance gone. But no one noticed that as Mazel lowered his head, his fingers trembled, and a vicious light silently flitted through his eyes. I'm just a nobody. You've seen my memories. I was born deformed, and I was looked down upon since I was a child. From start to finish, I've always been someone else's servant, a servant, existing only for the will of others. Are you really willing to bicker with a pitiful person like me? Reaper, kill him. In his final moments, Mazel's expression became savage. Far away, whoosh. In a flash of light, the white bear that had been fighting with Ziad suddenly raised half its body as it passed by Wang Chong. Without any warning, a snow-white palm the size of a mountain suddenly slapped down at Wang Chong's shoulder. Ah! Cries of alarm rang out, everyone dumbfounded by this sudden development. Even the Arab deputy governor Ziad, who was standing across from Bai Xiong, revealed a hint of shock, as if he had no idea what was going on. On the other side, the white bear's massive palm was getting closer and closer to Wang Chong. Even though Wang Chong was a Saint Martial Tier 8 expert, he would still be dead in front of a behemoth with terrifying strength. Mazel, you really think yourself clever? Did you really think that your little tricks could fool me? Wang Chong stood on the left shoulder of the giant ape, his expression cold and unmoved. Boom! Just when the countless Tang dynasty soldiers were feeling uneasy, their hearts in their throats, and all the Arab soldiers, including Ziad, were hoping that the white bear's palm would kill Wang Chong, there was a flash of light and a heaven-shaking boom. A moment later, the other arm of the ape seemed to have predicted this attack and blocked it. Roar! The giant ape suddenly turned its head and roared at the white bear. Its expression was extremely ferocious. No! Mazel's body went limp at this sight, and he collapsed onto the head of the centipede monster and let out a howl of despair. Unlike before, Mazel's eyes were ashen, and there was no longer any hope of a fluke. In order to avoid Wang Chong's senses and control the white bear behemoth's palm, Mazel had expended a great deal of energy, but he had still lost. Now! Meet your fate! A callous voice resounded in Mazel's mind. This time, Wang Chong had no pity, no hesitation. Rumble. Psychic energy swept out like a tide, crushing Mazel's last sliver of consciousness. When Mazel had schemed against Wang Chong, he had also severed his last sliver of life. Ah! Mazel gave one final scream before his death, his shrill voice piercing through the earth and resounding over the battlefield. Both Abu Muslim and Ziad grimaced at this voice. I curse you, Wang Chong, and all the Tang people of the East. I will make all of you die horrible deaths. There will be a day when someone will avenge me. This war is far from over. Mazel spat venomously, and with that, Mazel's life was snuffed out, his aura vanishing from the world. Truly seeking death. Wang Chong's expression was cold, his eyes devoid of any pity. Mazel's smartass had only hastened his death. Mazel! That bastard actually killed him. Meanwhile, in the air, Abu Muslim and Ziad had completely different reactions. Even when Wang Chong was controlling the 4 behemoths to slaughter the Arabs, Abu Muslim and Ziad had only turned ashen, their eyes spitting fire. But when Mazel died, these 2 illustrious Arab commanders, renowned for their iron fists and callousness, suddenly paled. Mazel was not only the commander of the behemoth army, but also one of the caliph's favored subjects. He was highly regarded by the caliph. If not for the caliph's orders and the fact that Talas was far from the royal capital, Abu Muslim and Ziad would have never had the right to command Mazel. More importantly, Mazel didn't know any martial arts. He was just a psychic energy warlock with a crippled body. He had been ordered by the emperor to lead the behemoths to the east. As the highest commanders of the east, Abu Muslim and Ziad had the responsibility of protecting him, but now, Mazel was dead. Chapter 997. The Arabian Empire had a strict hierarchy, and the commander of the empire's most important behemoth army had died on the border because of him. Not even Abu Muslim, the strongest governor of the East in history, could bear the consequences. Wang Chong, you will pay the price for this. I will personally kill you so that you can accompany Mazel in death. Abu Muslim's expression was one of rage. Asmodai's fury. Abu Muslim instantly exploded with his strongest attack, and behind him, Asmodeus, one of the 72 demon god pillars, even began to split his 3 heads into 3, forming 3 demon god bodies. At this moment, Abu Muslim's strength increased by nearly 40%. Die for me. At almost the same time, Deputy Governor Ziad grabbed the bronze ocean ring and threw it at Wang Chong on the giant ape's shoulder. The 2 imperial great generals worked together, stimulating the last of their potential as they madly attacked Wang Chong. Boom boom boom. The governor and deputy governor's attacks rained down on Wang Chong, covering every angle and direction of the giant ape's body, enveloping every inch of space around Wang Chong. Even space itself began to crumble, pitch-black cracks appearing in the air. The immense power of the attacks even caused the ground beneath Wang Chong's feet to hum and tremble as if an earthquake was occurring. Even the powerful consecrated began to wobble under the viceroy and governor's all-out attacks. Large patches of bruises appeared on its body as it was completely suppressed by the two's attacks. Given the consecrated's immense strength, this sort of situation was simply unimaginable. Abu Muslim, Ziad, it's useless. Standing on the giant ape's shoulder, Wang Chong shook his head as he gazed at the frenzied pair. Wang Chong raised his head, and as far as his eyes could see, there were violent air currents everywhere, and the ear-piercing whistling sounds were like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves, rising and falling, filling his ears, but Wang Chong's expression was calm, and he didn't move in the slightest. Your efforts are futile. Your attacks can't even break through the giant ape's defenses. It's impossible for you to pose any threat to me. Wang Chong was like a rock, standing erect in place. Abu Muslim and Ziad had no way of knowing that at this moment, they were no longer facing Wang Chong, but an experienced and peak-war saint of the Central Plains, a supreme commander who had once led the last of the continent's soldiers in battle against the otherworldly invaders for several decades and had been tempered by blood and fire. Boom boom boom. Neither Abu Muslim nor Ziad showed any signs of slowing down. On the contrary, they were even fiercer than before. Arrogant. I want to see how long you can last. So what if you can control the behemoths? No matter how great the price, I want you dead. If I don't kill you, I won't rest. Ziad's expression was as cold as ice. Although Wang Chong was controlling the giant ape, both Ziad and Abu Muslim could sense that Wang Chong's cultivation level was not very high. He was only at Saint Martial Tier 8, not even a great general. If not for the fact that the consecrated, the strongest of the four behemoths, had been blocking them this entire time, both Ziad and Abu Muslim would have been able to easily pulverize Wang Chong. The behemoths were not martial artists, so their defenses were not so tight. They would eventually reveal a flaw, and that moment would be the day of Wang Chong's death. Buzz. Just when Ziad had made up his mind that no matter what price he had to pay, he had to kill Wang Chong, the sky suddenly darkened and an enormous shadow engulfed Ziad. Ziad's expression froze, and he subconsciously turned his head. When he slowly raised his head, he saw that a massive figure had appeared behind him at some point, a pair of scarlet eyes staring coldly and emotionlessly at him. Burning One. Ziad's heart chilled as he recognized this behemoth with a glance. He didn't know when this fire-type giant beast had advanced all the way, but it had actually gotten so close. But this was not the only thing that made Ziad's heart turn cold. 1, 2, 3, the consecrated, the burning one, the reaper, the four supreme behemoths of the Arabian Empire had all gathered here, working with the consecrated to occupy the four cardinal directions and surround Ziad and Abu Muslim. Although Ziad and Abu Muslim were known as the two strongest existences of the Arabian East, before these four primordial behemoths, each several dozen feet tall and brimming with vitality, they were as insignificant as ants. Didn't you want to fight? Then come. Wang Chong sneered at the pair, and with a thought, the consecrated, the burning one, the reaper, the four supreme behemoths attacked at the same time. Wind and lightning surged, and the entire world seemed to lose color to the attacks of these four behemoths. Bang! Two massive palms, one on the left and one on the right, struck Ziad and sent him flying. At almost the same time, a lava flame even more dazzling than the sun and three mountainous palms struck the governor of Iron and Blood. Pillar of Asmodai. In the end, Abu Muslim was still stronger than Ziad. Although he had not expected the four behemoths to gather together, Abu Muslim still reacted as quickly as possible. Dark clouds roiled in the sky as black energy flowed like a river, gathering in front of Abu Muslim. In the sky, a massive pillar of golden-red demon god appeared out of nowhere and enveloped Abu Muslim. Asmodai was a demon god of the ancient legends of the Arabian Empire, the guardian of treasures. It was scattered all over the deep sea, hiding countless priceless treasures. Those treasures were enough to make any human king go crazy. As the guardian of these treasures, Asmodai had a powerful defensive ability besides the strength that everyone was familiar with, the Pillar of Asmodai. Abu Muslim's ability to conquer so many countries and fight with so many great generals without suffering a single wound was largely due to this technique. At his peak, Abu Muslim could even block the combined attacks of 3 great generals at the same time. Rumble. The flames of the burning one and the paws of the other behemoths collided with Abu Muslim's Pillar of Asmodeus. In a few short moments, the air exploded with explosions. Smoke and flames shot out for more than 100 jang, and destructive shockwaves and storms swept across the battlefield. Clang! A steel wall weighing tens of thousands of jin was struck by the shockwaves and twisted into a pile of scrap metal. At the same time, the distant city of Talas also suffered a massive impact, the entire city shuddering and stirring up a cloud of dust. The city gate of Talas, forged from 10,000-year-old Xian metal, even caved in. In the air, Abu Muslim was fighting against the 4 behemoths alone, and the result was quickly apparent. Hong, the enormous golden-red Asmodeus pillar only lasted for an instant before it immediately shattered into pieces. Even though the Pillar of Asmodai was hailed as an indestructible fortress, it was unable to stop the combined attacks of the 4 behemoths. Under the attacks of the 4 behemoths, Abu Muslim was sent flying through the air like a cannonball, flying more than 1,000 feet. But at the last moment, Abu Muslim seemed to be pushed by some invisible energy, causing him to come to a sudden stop. The heavily injured Gao Xianji, Qing Qianli, and Wang Yan were all stunned by this sight. Even Wang Chong, who was standing on the giant ape's shoulder, couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. He was well aware of just how powerful the behemoths were. Putting aside Abu Muslim's offensive power, just the formidable defensive power he had displayed was enough to make anyone shiver in fear. But a moment later, crack! Abu Muslim's black armor, which had been forged from some unknown material, suddenly began to crack like a broken mirror. The intact battlefield was instantly shattered into thousands of pieces that rained down from the sky. Abu Muslim's expression chilled as he lowered his head, his expression finally paling. The armor of Besses. In the Arabian language, Besses represented the earth, sturdy, and war. Besses was a hell behemoth. It was rumored that Besses had been born from the earth and fed on war, slaughter, and fear. Because it had obtained life from the earth, it was endowed with extremely powerful offensive and defensive abilities. It was the most cherished armor of commanders who loved war and slaughter. From the moment it was created, the armor of Besses had been owned by more than 200 legendary commanders and great generals. It had an extremely ancient history, and there was almost no one in the world to the west of the Tsong Mountains who did not know of it. It was one of the rarest and rarest armors. Abu Muslim had obtained it 20 years ago, when he conquered the Sassanid dynasty, from the tomb of a legendary Sassanid marshal. Abu Muslim had always regarded it as a precious treasure, even more so than the eye of the demon god. Chapter 998. The armor of Besses was incredibly tough, capable of blocking the attacks of almost any weapon and greatly weakening them. Abu Muslim had even believed that there was nothing in the world that could damage the armor of Besses. But now, the powerful armor of Besses had been completely shattered by the combined attacks of the 4 behemoths. At this moment, Abu Muslim was stunned. Abu Muslim, I know that you like war. Come, let's fight to the end. A voice resounded through the world. Wang Chong looked at the distant Abu Muslim, a playful smile on his lips. No matter how powerful Abu Muslim was or how many Arab tools and treasures he had on him, on this battlefield, as long as he controlled the 4 behemoths, he would be the strongest force on the battlefield. This was something that no magic tool could compare to. There was no existence here that could fight against 4 behemoths at the same time. Whoosh! As Wang Chong spoke, a massive wave of lava swept toward Abu Muslim. A moment ago, Abu Muslim had been so callous and iron-fisted that he had dared to use the eye of the demon god to fight against the consecrated, but now, he had retreated, his body flashing as he dodged the burning one's attack. Humph! You think you can escape? Wang Chong sneered, knowing that Abu Muslim had fallen into his rhythm. No matter which behemoth he fought against, as his energy was consumed, he would eventually have to face 3 or more behemoths at the same time, and he would immediately be doomed. Roar! The strongest of the 4 behemoths, the consecrated, opened its mouth, revealing a mouthful of savage fangs as it swung its 2 massive ape arms at Abu Muslim. Shortly after, the Reaper and the other gigantic beast pounced on them. As Moliai's fury, Abu Muslim grimaced as he unleashed a punch from the 72 demon god pillar's fist while retreating to the western side of the battlefield. However, before he could retreat, boom, another burst of lava shot out, blocking his path. Now that he had lost the armor of besieged, even Abu Muslim was forced to dodge this full-strength attack of the Burning One. You want to leave now? It won't be that easy. Wang Chong sneered and commanded the 3 giant beasts to surround them. Abu Muslim was extremely powerful, even more so than Gao Xianji, and his defensive prowess was astonishing. In this aspect, Wang Chong had never seen an imperial great general stronger than him. But in terms of combat experience and technique, Abu Muslim had no advantage. Boom! There was a flash of light as a massive bear paw swatted at Abu Muslim. At almost the same time, another massive paw came from behind Abu Muslim. Soon after, Wang Chong had the strongest consecrated approach, its massive ape arms smashing down on Abu Muslim with the weight of Mount Tai. Under Wang Chong's control, the 3 behemoths attacked in wave after wave, giving Abu Muslim no time to catch his breath. Abu Muslim dodged left and right under the barrage of attacks from the 3 behemoths, his face ashen and grimacing, but he remained silent. At this point in the battle, not even someone as callous and iron-fisted as Abu Muslim could say anything. Abu Muslim could hardly absolve himself from the blame for turning this battle from a seemingly favorable situation to this current one. But as the commander of the army, even though he knew that he could no longer contend against Wang Chong, Abu Muslim still persisted, still searching for one last ray of hope that he could turn defeat into victory and reverse this unprecedented rout. But at this moment, a scream resounded in his ear. Ziad! Abu Muslim grimaced as he instantly recognized who it was. His heart tightened as he turned his head. In the distance, Ziad, wielding the ocean ring, had been struck by one of the Burning One's flames. Behind him, Abu Muslim was shocked to see a centipede monster. It's Mazel's pet. Abu Muslim recognized this centipede monster. At some point, Wang Chong had taken control of this monster and stealthily circled behind Ziad. It was precisely this centipede monster's sudden appearance that blocked Ziad's path of retreat, allowing him to be struck by the Burning One's jaws. On the surface, Wang Chong was putting all his strength into dealing with Abu Muslim, but in reality, he was baiting Ziad. Upon understanding this, Abu Muslim's heart sank, and he suddenly felt an intense apprehension toward Wang Chong. This young commander of the Tang dynasty had a meticulous mind, far more frightening than any opponent he had ever faced. An excellent chance. Wang Chong had been observing Abu Muslim this entire time. On the surface, he seemed to be using luring tactics to deal with Ziad, but his true target had never changed. It had always been the highest commander of the Eastern Arab army. When Abu Muslim turned his head to look at Ziad, Wang Chong immediately sensed the opportunity he had been waiting for. An expert of Abu Muslim's level was far too experienced and skilled. Even though Wang Chong had 4 behemoths with the power to destroy the world, killing him would still be no easy task. Only by baiting a sliver of weakness in his mind could Wang Chong succeed. Bang! While Abu Muslim was distracted, Wang Chong's giant ape, white bear, and another behemoth formed a triangle around Abu Muslim. The three behemoths attacked from three different directions, sealing off all of Abu Muslim's paths of retreat. This was an extremely rare opportunity. Wang Chong had been waiting for this moment for many years, and the strength of these three behemoths was even more astonishing. Before the giant palms had even descended, the enormous pressure had already blasted the space between them into a vacuum. Without the protection of the armor of Basai Nisi, even Abu Muslim couldn't help but grimace in the face of this dreadful attack. For the first time in his life, the governor of Iron and Blood sensed the thick stench of death. But a moment later, Abu Muslim's thick brow rose as if he had noticed something. Bzzz. Before the attacks of the three behemoths could land, Abu Muslim had slipped through the gap between the three behemoths and escaped from Wang Chong's killing trap. Ziad, let's go. Abu Muslim fiercely punched, forcing back the mountainous burning one and giving Ziad a moment to catch his breath, and then he swiftly fled into the distance. Although he was unwilling, Abu Muslim did not persist this time. Although Wang Chong was not very strong, only at Saint Martial Tier 8, Abu Muslim did not place him in his eyes. But the intelligence and strength he had displayed left Abu Muslim deeply apprehensive. In his hands, the four behemoths had reached the pinnacle of power, even stronger than when they were in the hands of the Arabs. Moreover, the behemoths were even able to cooperate with each other. This was simply unimaginable. On the other side, although Ziad was injured, with Abu Muslim's assistance, he was able to smoothly escape. Without the slightest hesitation, he followed Abu Muslim into the distance. But this time, Wang Chong did not immediately pursue. What's going on here? Wang Chong's mind was in turmoil. He suddenly turned his head to look at the white bear, a dark and gloomy look on his face. According to Wang Chong's original plan, with the strength of the three behemoths and his own calculations, Abu Muslim would be heavily injured, if not killed. But when the three behemoths were preparing for the final attack, for some reason, the white bear behemoth had suddenly slowed down by half a beat. This difference of half a beat had caused a gap to appear in Wang Chong's encirclement, allowing Abu Muslim to use this gap to successfully escape. I already have complete control over the four behemoths. All their limbs, torsos, muscles, and skin. How could something like this suddenly happen? Wang Chong was well aware that the white bear's change was not normal. But there was no time to think, and Wang Chong quickly raised his head to the front. Everyone, hear my order. Assemble the army and attack at full speed. Abu Muslim was fast, and Ziad was not much slower. Wang Chong would not be able to catch up to the two of them in a short time, but the Arab soldiers on the ground were different. And besides these Arab soldiers, Wang Chong was also facing another enormous threat, the skyquaking giants. Whoosh! The burning one raised its head and spat out a mouthful of lava at a skyquaking giant 100 jang away. Aya! With a scream, the 18-meter-tall skyquaking giant was set ablaze. Wang Chong only glanced at it before turning his eyes to the rest of the battlefield. Standing on the giant ape's shoulder, he could see countless skyquaking giants roaring as they continued to fight. Although the skyquaking giants were powerful, their lack of intelligence was on full display. Under Wang Chong's control, the four behemoths were dominating the battlefield. Countless Arab soldiers were fleeing in fear to the west, and even Abu Muslim and Ziad were forced to retreat to avoid Wang Chong's edge. But the skyquaking giants seemed oblivious, all of them still engrossed in the battle before them. More than 80% of the skyquaking army was still fighting, showing no signs of retreating. Truly reckless. It's no wonder Abu Muslim waited until the last moment to release them. Wang Chong coldly said. In the past, just 500 or 600 skyquaking giants would have been enough to deal a massive blow to the Tang dynasty, but with four behemoths under his control, these skyquaking giants were no longer a threat. Chapter 999. Roar. The behemoth roared as the massive white bear swatted down with its massive paw. A skyquaking giant screamed in fear, but it only had time to raise its arms to block before the paw smashed it into pulp. At almost the same time, Wang Chong controlled the giant ape to punch two skyquaking giants in two. Even their dark green heaven god armor was crushed by the giant ape's immense strength. The consecrated were stronger than the burning one and the other behemoths, so these skyquaking giants were even less of a match. Kill him. To Wang Chong's surprise, the nearby skyquaking giants did not flee at the sight of their comrade being killed. On the contrary, their eyes went red and they began to seethe with killing intent. The leading skyquaking giant called out, and the earth quaked. 7 or 8 skyquaking giants, ranging from 18 to 23 meters tall, roared as they charged fearlessly at the giant ape. Boom! These skyquaking giants were wearing dark green god battle armor and wielding shields and spears. Their movements were nimble as they attacked the giant ape from all sides. Roar! Several of the skyquaking giants leaped onto the giant ape's body and began to climb over its head. Spears, shields, and fists rained down on the giant ape's body. These skyquaking giants possessed peerless strength, their punches capable of shattering mountains and shattering steel. But when these punches landed on the giant ape, they were completely blocked by its tough skin. Wang Chong only shook his head at this sight. Boom! A massive ape arm descended from the sky, instantly crushing a skyquaking giant that was still climbing on the ape's back. Blood gushed out like a waterfall from the dark green god battle armor. Boom! The giant ape's left fist punched again, and a skyquaking giant with a savage expression and a dark green shield was struck by the giant ape's iron fist. Crack! The shield shattered, and the giant ape's enormous strength shattered the skyquaking giant's bones, causing blood to flow out of his orifices. With a thud, he fell to the ground like a ragged sack. Boom, boom, boom. The movements of the giant apes were fast and nimble. They were either blocking, chopping, kicking, or slapping. All kinds of moves were constantly changing. In just a short time, the blood of 6 or 7 giant apes sprayed through the sky. One by one, they fell to the ground in a disorderly manner, motionless, and this happened in less than a few breaths' time. The giant ape's strength was far too easy to deal with these giants. With the 4 behemoths working together, the skyquaking giants that had been like a thorn in the heart of the Tang dynasty army instantly suffered grievous losses. 20, 50, 80, 120, large swathes of skyquaking giants were cut down like melons and vegetables, their 10-meter-tall bodies crashing to the ground one after another. Wave after wave of skyquaking giants fearlessly charged forward, only to be cut down like weeds. Finally, run! With a shrill cry, the giants were finally afraid in the face of the giant beast's overwhelming power. One of the skyquaking giants that had been charging at the giant ape saw the corpse of his comrade and suddenly stopped. A hint of fear flashed through his eyes, and then he began to flee. There was one, and then there was a second, a third, although the giants had sacrificed their intelligence for power, so much so that they couldn't even sense the changes on the battlefield, they were still intelligent creatures. Even they knew fear in the face of death. In a flash, the skyquaking giants saw the 4 behemoths and began to flee with the Arabs, their courage crumbling like a mountain in a landslide. By this time, 200 to 300 skyquaking giants had fallen. Kill! With the crisis of the skyquaking giants resolved, the Tang dynasty soldiers on the ground breathed sighs of relief. Unsheathing their swords, they surged forward like a tide toward the distant Arabs. Whether it was the behemoths or the giants, they were not normal creatures, nor were they things that should normally appear on the battlefield. In the end, the opponents of warriors were still warriors. That was their battle. Damn it! What's going on here? How did Maslow's behemoth army end up being controlled by these Eastern humans? Where's that bastard himself? No one was more panicked than the commander of the giant army, Garib Hassam. He still didn't know how he had lost a battle that should have been certain victory. Even the illustrious governor Abu Muslim and Ziyad had fled. And the fact that the mighty skyquaking army had lost 200 to 300 men in such a short time made him feel a chill in his heart. Hurry and get out of here. These Tang people are even stronger than the legends say. I can't keep fighting. If I don't run now, I might really die here. Garib Hassan was panicking as he did his utmost to flee. But a moment later, he saw a certain place in front of him, and Garib Hassan was instantly enraged. These bastards! They're running even faster than me. Several hundred meters in front of Garib Hassan, the skyquaking giants were fleeing even faster than Garib Hassan. This made Garib Hassan want nothing more than to chase after them and smash them to the ground. Just when Garib Hassan was preparing to pursue, he suddenly felt a strange sensation in his mind. In a flash of light, the air trembled, and in the blink of an eye, a flame more dazzling than the sun exploded in front of him. This sudden development made Garib Hassan's heart shiver, and he had to stop. However, this was far from over. Boom! In the next moment, the air whistled, and an enormous aura descended from the sky like a storm, landing heavily in front of Garib Hassan. Garib Hassan's mind shook when he saw the mountain-like giant ape in front of him, and his expression instantly changed. The consecrated. Garib Hassan never expected that the most powerful behemoth would actually block his way at this time. The others can leave, but you, obediently stay behind. A voice came from the giant ape's shoulder. Wang Chong was looking down on the giant commander, his expression cold and his voice firm and decisive. You're right, Wang Chong said. In the entire giant army, no one was more powerful than the king of giants. With his height of nearly 30 meters, he stood out even amongst the giants, but this was not the only reason Wang Chong was determined to keep him here. Bzzz. Wang Chong's gaze moved from Garib Hassan's head to his neck, and then to his abdomen, all the way to the massive war halo at his feet. This king of giants was different from the others, not just because of his title, but because Wang Chong sensed a vast and boundless energy from his body. Wang Chong had expected giants to appear in the Southwestern War, but this was the first time Wang Chong had encountered a giant who knew martial arts. The stellar energy in his body was vast and boundless. Although he had not yet reached the great general level, in terms of quantity, not even 20 brigadier generals could compare to him. Not even the great generals who stood at the apex of all martial artists could compare to him. In Wang Chong's eyes, this was a living, free-moving dipper treasury. The battle was in full swing, and Wang Chong, Gao Xianji, Qing Qianli, and Wang Yan had all sustained severe injuries. At a time like this, how could Wang Chong allow the king of giants to leave? Foul brat, don't be too arrogant. Don't think that I don't know that you're the one controlling these behemoths. Although I can't defeat the consecrated, dealing with you isn't a problem. Garib Hassan glared at Wang Chong on the consecrated's shoulder and roared. Oh! Wang Chong's eyes widened in surprise. This king of giants had been able to see the crux of the problem at a glance. It appeared that he was smarter than he had imagined. A giant who knows how to taunt me is truly interesting. But you'd better obediently lie down for me. Wang Chong grinned as he ordered the giant ape to attack. Boom! The air howled as a massive fist smashed toward Garib Hassan. Garib Hassan's expression changed. In the blink of an eye, he crossed his arms and assumed a defensive stance to block the consecrated's attack. Garib Hassan was powerful enough, but there was still a significant gap between him and the giant ape. Bang! Bang! With a loud sound, Garib Hassan's left shoulder was struck, and the dark green shoulder armor instantly shattered. The enormous force sent Garib Hassan flying like a cannonball, and he heavily smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Not only did Wang Chong not rejoice after sending Garib Hassan flying, he even stopped and frowned as he looked down at the giant ape's arm. Wang Chong had expected the giant ape's fist to hit Garib Hassan's chest and not his left shoulder. With the consecrated's immense strength, this punch should have been enough to heavily injure Garib Hassan and completely destroy his fighting strength. But for some reason, the Consecrated's attack had deviated at the last moment. What's going on? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.